Anyway, let's watch this instead. This is called The Facade of Stephen Crowder. He doesn't seem like a great husband. That's all I know. Let's watch it. It's from J. Aubrey. Let's check it out.
They think that because they're a part of the elite ruling class that they're exempt from the rules, and that's arguably worse. They want to force everybody else to live by these rules and aren't willing to do it themselves.
He's spitting facts, guys. Wow, that's a lot of, okay.
I have a dream of 9 crack whores at a Motel 6.
Hey, Michael Mitchell, oh, globalist God!
Get in the news a lot lately.
This is a dangerous man. It's pandering a little bit.
One of them.
What's up with all the... Is this gonna be like DMCA music? Crazy.
Racists.
Horrible working conditions.
He was venomous. It's disgusting and it is vile.
Do you believe it's plausible that Stephen Crowder is just a monster?
Yeah. A monster. A monster.
There's nothing I love.
All right, well, let's hope we don't have to cut out the entire introduction for some kind of copyright.
More than bad stand-up comedy. Nothing fascinates me as much as watching some overconfident drunk idiot get up in front of a packed crowd on open mic night and just letting it rip.
Yeah, you want me to out?
Damn, really got the Dennis in there.
You think I can be a girl?
Douchebag, you know what's in the front of the crowd?
It's almost incredible how bad you are at this.
I don't think enough people appreciate the genuine level of intellect, timing, and planning that goes into crafting a well-thought-out joke. It's a talent, and it's not hard to see who has it and who doesn't.
I'll bake some Mexican cookies, and you go over there, I'm like, it's a Mexican cookie, what are you talking about? It's like a chocolate chip with sauce all over it? What are you talking about?
Not everyone is cut out for such an industry, but that doesn't keep them from trying.
So I drove here. That's a really disturbing trend in cars nowadays. I don't know if you folks have seen these dream catchers. Is this thing working? Okay, thank you, sir.
If your stand-up career doesn't work out, that's okay. You can always pivot to selling overpriced mugs.
Hey, listen. Stand-up seems really hard. All right? I could understand why people don't want to do it. They give up and they do something easier, like, I don't know, political grifting or something. I think a lot of the people at the Daily Wire wanted to be some kind of an actor or comedian or something, and they kind of just failed at it, so they went there. You know? So, it is what it is.
And t-shirts that totally don't have slurs written on them.
The Che Guevara Socialism is for Figs t-shirt.
If you found yourself...
Whoa, that's a funny joke, making it seem like you're saying a slur. I mean, like, listen, I'm all for comedy, but, like, don't you think you're almost insulting yourself if you laugh to that? Like, you couldn't come up with anything better or more intelligent than, like, LOL, socialism is for figs? Like, what's the... I mean, the joke is you almost said a bad word. I don't get it. It's not really funny. That's, like, kind of loser shit.
Spewing incoherent drivel to make up for an evident lack of talent, then your name might be Stephen Crowder. A man who refers to underage girls as slutty, tweets about...
Whoa!
Lack of talent, then your name might be Stephen Crowder. A man who refers to underage...
Best Halloween costume.
Girl...
Slutty Greta Thunberg. Oh, okay. Well, I don't know if he's necessarily referring to underage girls. I get what you're saying.
As slutty, he tweets about wanting to have sex with his mom, I guess.
What? What? Really? Right now his preference is body cavity. No one cares where you stick your dick, Steven. Right now, its preference is the body cavity from whence it came. What the fuck?
And threatens his pregnant wife when he thinks no one is watching.
I love you, but Steven, your beast is sick.
Watch it. Watch it.
See, Stephen was once a leading figurehead of the online conservative movement, respected by his peers and adored by his audience until a series of allegations made by former friends, family, and colleagues tarnished his good name, even in the eyes of fans. His own comment sections have gone from endearing words of support to complete disdain just over the past month alone. But if you've been following Stephen as long as I have, then you know these instances are just as much horrifying as they are consistent with his public persona. A wannabe comedian who failed so hard at...
Oh yeah, he's just a piece of shit that, like, oh, I won? How the fuck did I win? He's just a piece of shit that tries to be, like, provocative. He thinks that just being shocking is funny. Like, I understand shock humor can be funny, but all he does is, like, him pretending to kneel on the neck of, like, or have somebody kneel on his neck when George Floyd was killed. That's not really funny. You know, even if, you know, if you have a different opinion on that situation, it's still not funny. It's like, that's just not funny.
His craft, that he sought out alternative means to fulfill his incessant need to be liked.
Yeah, maybe Steven's just trying to protest the Canadian stereotype that they're nice people. Maybe that's all it is.
Paid millions to sow chaos and contribute to what makes political spaces so poisonous in the first place. But before we get to all of that, we do have a sponsor, Bespoke Post. Bespoke Post is a monthly membership club delivering box of awesome top-shelf goods from
The hell's that?
Under the
Heaps?
radar brands. Every month, Bespoke introduces its members to slick new products, ranging from outdoor gear to home goods, quality cookware. All you have to do is fill out a quick and easy quiz to determine which boxes fit your needs the best. This month, I got a nifty cool.
Men's grooming.
Do is fill out a quick and easy quiz to determine.
This is men's grooming, guys. We have to be careful, men. Gotta be careful from these groomers.
Determine which boxes fit your needs the best. This month, I got a nifty cooler from the Canteen box, this super portable hammock from Retreat, and a fun little popcorn maker from the pop.
All right, cool. Let me skip to this ad. Let's skip to the thing. Go check it out, guys.
To Bespoke Post for sponsoring this one. They're truly the one-of-a-kind brand. Yeah, unfortunately, back to this guy. I've actually known about Steven Crowder for a long time, considering when I was 14, I used to watch Steven's videos. I know, okay, don't come for me yet, let me explain.
You need to leave.
I was brought up in a Christian conservative household, and when I was given internet access, I wanted to watch somebody who said things I was used to hearing regarding.
When I was given internet access, bro, let me tell you something. It was just porn and video games and white people saying slurs to each other. So I never went down the alt-right pipeline. You know what I mean? You know, I'm just saying.
Regarding guns, climate change.
How old is Jay Aubrey, though? And how old am I?
And Obama. Not that I actually understood any of those issues, but at 14, I didn't care about challenging my perspective on the world. I wanted.
Oh, apparently he's only 23. I'm 33, dude. Oh, I'm so old. I'm gonna die.
Somebody who would reinforce it, someone who would validate it. And Steven Crowder was that. Steven's shallow dichotomy of Republican good, Democrat bad, satisfied the confirmation bias I was at the time searching for. And that's ultimately one of the things Steven is best at, presenting a right-leaning perspective in a way that's easy for the youth to digest. In fact, he's long been accredited for putting a young face on conservatism, which is different from the old white guy club that people see too often, at least according to Chris Lash, a friend
Prager me.
of Steven.
What the fuck is going on here?
And husband of NRA spokesperson and local psycho who once compared gun owners to rape victims, Dana Lash. Another writer critical of Steven echoed a similar sentiment when he told the Daily Beast in 2013, Steven's being promoted because he provides a very good face for the right wing to reassure its older generation that 20-somethings don't really support gay marriage and aren't concerned about income inequality. In the beginning, Steven carved.
My real thing is, like, why do conservatives still give a shit whose ass is getting blasted in private? Like, all jokes aside, like, why the fuck are you so interested? Because I have, like, more conservative-leaning family. My mother is conservative, and she's like, we have gay family, so she's like, whatever. She just, like, she thinks it's fine, you know? Like, who cares? Like, I feel like conservatives are being let down by the Republican Party every day. The primary goal right now, the Republican Party, is to complain about gay and trans people, and have your opinions if you want. But there's no, like, actual economic reform. Like, it's so lazy. Like, there's nothing. You're not even being advocated for. You're just being lied to. Like, what's the point? You know, I expect more from your party. Just like I expect more from my fucking party. Do something, bro. What's happening here? I'm gonna lose.
Out a niche for himself where he could be easily seen as a more modern breed of conservative, while still very much holding the same views as an older generation of pundits that were being increasingly seen as out of touch. Steven could reach young people in a way that Glenn Beck and Rush Limbaugh no longer could.
866 Gold Line. My N-word. That didn't really...
Because Steven...
Wow. Is that how I sound when I try to make racist jokes?
Wasn't strictly a political guy. No, he actually denounced that label from the very beginning. Steven Crowder has always been a self-described cultural person, whatever that means, and would rather think of himself first and foremost as an actor and, of course, comedian. So,
yes, but worse. All right, fuck you. How's that?
Sorry, but I'm making you watch a stand-up with me. If I had to see it, so do you, motherfucker.
And I don't want to say, if you take the Greyhound bus, you're ugly, but if you're ugly, you take the Greyhound bus. Joy Behar is so mind-numbingly stupid that you could be sitting across from her talking.
I mean, he seems to be getting laughs, so.
With her and not even having the same conversation. Well, Miss Behar, I think this debt is getting out of control. I don't think that we should be passing it down to our children. I know! Like my ex-husband never used to wash his feet! No, I mean, I'm just saying that, we're passing a debt down onto our children that they can. I know, I love blueberry pancakes!
Keep in mind, this is the kind of stuff he would...
I don't know, he's getting laughs. I mean, I don't think it's funny, but I also don't have the setup, and I also have an IQ above 80. So, but, like, maybe he appeals to a certain demographic. I don't know. Maybe they thought he was actually funny. Yeah.
About when he really needs a laugh. Well, that are his nuts, apparently, but we'll get to that later. This might shock you, but Steven isn't exactly known for a comedy that challenges the way we think.
Biden sharks do 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 do. Biden sharks do 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 do. Biden sharks do 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 do. Biden sharks.
Most of his act consists of making pretty mundane.
Yes. I think the funniest part about Crowder is that he's so confident. Like, what the fuck was that? Like, that was so preposterous. I can't believe a grown man came up with that. Like, what the fuck?
In observations.
Guys seen this? It's a Native American Indian contraption, consists of wooden hoops and feathers, supposed to help you sleep soundly.
Getting cheap applause from an audience that already agrees with his politics.
Herman Cain.
What was the joke there?
Dane observations.
Guys seen this? It's a Native American Indian contraption, consists of wooden hoops and feathers, supposed to help you sleep soundly.
Getting.
Is he talking about a dream catcher? Because I don't know the setup or the build up to the joke or anything, but like I know Crowder well enough to like I think it's reasonable to say that he might have been trying to like take a shot at like that like indigenous culture. I mean, not for nothing, but like, you know, we believe in a fucking sky wizard that like watches us masturbate and thinks slavery is kind of okay, but gay people aren't. So, you know, I don't know, bro. I'm not trying to be an asshole, but I'm just saying.
Cheap applause from an audience that already agrees with his politics.
Herman Cain. There you go.
9/11.
And finding ways to show off his world-renowned impressions of other races, which honestly he still can't really do.
Oh,
So you get these Middle Eastern wannabe thugs. You're nice people, but you can't pull off the thug look. Like, oh, you know what? I am going to mess you up hardcore. Hey, check out the Durban, white boy. I won my nut on the left side. Yes, that's the crib side. They're cruising down the street for chicks like...
I won't show you anymore because I am against cruel and unusual
Okay, incredible.
punishment, but for what it's worth, part 2 of his act only got about 20% of the views that his first part got. So if that doesn't tell you everything you need to know about his theater skills, maybe we should take a look at his IMDb page.
Oh, that makes sense if he's a theater nerd, because theater nerds are the literal worst people in the entire world. Let's be real here, bro.
You can read about his breakout role on, you ready for this? Get ready. Arthur.
What would you think of me if I ever got anything wrong?
Yes, it's hard to believe. My first exposure to
Arthur.
this man was when he voiced the Brain on a show my sister and I grew up watching. And to make it even more surreal, one of the episodes is literally about Brain trying to become a comedian and failing.
Well, now that things have changed, I need to be practical
Is that Steven Crowder?
and train myself for a new career in comedy.
You're going to be a comedian?
I just smashed an atom.
Are you crazy?
Okay, I'm
No,
gonna
just
merge
practical
this.
and willing to face facts.
Ooh, that is
No
just
use
like
crying
Crowder.
over spilt milk.
Stop him! You've got to do something fast before he humiliates himself.
Ironically, Steven was predicting the rest of his career with this one, as he struggled to find work
There
outside
you
of
go.
Arthur, with the exception of a few minor roles in the late 2000s, including the jock character in a Pure Flix movie, and an appearance in the feature film directed by his brother Jordan, where he pretty much just plays himself.
It's a double standard. It's like the women's rights thing is a double standard. Like, now they have, but now we're not allowed to hit them.
Steven's media career wasn't exactly popping off in the way he may have hoped. But that's not to say there wasn't an audience for his style of entertainment. See, despite growing up in Canada, Steven was always interested in American politics, and it was only a matter of time before Steven launched his own YouTube channel, weighing in on whatever political matters were relevant at the time.
You really can't find anything funny about this administration when Joe freaking Biden is vice president? What? What? It's like having Rain Man as vice president. Yeah, definitely make a better VP than Joe Biden. Hillary Clinton, Rain Man make better VP than Joe Biden.
This stuff was so quality. Steven
Who did this resonate with? What the fuck?
eventually caught the attention of Big Hollywood. No, not Hollywood. Big Hollywood was an affiliate of Breitbart News, the fringe right-wing news website accredited for giving your grandparents a computer virus. Turns out Breitbart and PJTV, never even heard of that one, were pretty big fans of what Steven was doing over on YouTube in 2008. And don't worry, I took the liberty of diving into the dark vat of Steven's old content, so you don't have to.
Thank you.
Pelosi on Elm Street.
What the fuck is this? Is this real? Chad, is this real? What the fuck is happening?
Now, whether Steven wants to admit it or not, conservative comedy isn't the most competitive industry, given how most mainstream comics, entertainers, and even musicians are typically left-leaning, meaning Steven never had to try as hard to get noticed, given the path that he chose for himself was always so narrow. Before long, he was being recruited to do stand-up at various Republican conferences, making his long-awaited rap debut at CPAC 2012 with the single Mr. America. I think I'll just let you be the judge of this one.
No, don't.
Yeah, but right now you're hot.
Wow. That grandma was really getting down with it, huh? Holy shit.
Hey, ain't you big hitter, but now I'm back from the dead. I'm bringing back all my knickers.
Damn, bro, come on.
What, knickers? No, it's okay. I can say knickers because I wear knickers.
Great job, Steven. Your tireless...
Drew Mediac just
Hey, thank you
subscribed for 11 months. Papa got back on Twitch.
Maybe. We're experimenting. We're experimenting. Thank you so much.
effort to engage the youth in America is encouraging. I want to hear this on the radio, better than anything else on the radio right now. I guess it's time to give rap music a second look. I can't do this shit, man. In 2009, Steven Crowder landed a job as the youngest media correspondent at Fox News. At that point, he had climbed the ladder from YouTube to obscure propaganda sites, and finally to the biggest cable news network in the country. Cutting his teeth.
Damn, what happened, man? I'm such an obnoxious asshole, and I don't get any brand deals or sponsorships or anything, or Fox News invitations. How come Crowder? I guess you have to be a conservative, obnoxious asshole. Should I just start the grift? Should I just go conservative? A conservative grift? Say fuck it? Maybe. No.
On extremely pretentious op-eds that have aged absolutely tragically in light of recent revelations. In one bizarrely judgmental article titled "Waiting Till the Wedding Night, Getting Married the Right Way," Steven writes, "As anyone who's read my abstinence column here at Fox News Opinion could guess," sorry, just what an incredible sequence of words that is. "My wife and I not only waited sexually in every way, we courted each other in a way that was consistent with our publicly professed values."
What a terrible idea to not have sex with your partner before you marry them. I mean, in all honesty, it doesn't have to be all about sex. You don't have to go around having sex on the first date. Like, I would generally recommend against that, especially as a woman, because a guy will see you as less than. And I don't think that you are a less than as a person. I'm just saying, like, that's how a guy will see you. So it's not bad to be a little bit, like, careful. I get, so that, yeah. But I mean, how are you gonna know if you want to be with that person for the rest of your life? You know what I mean? Like, sexual compatibility is such a big deal. So it really is such a terrible idea, in my opinion, to just wait until marriage. Wait till like the 4th date or something. I'm getting fucking dumpster shit here. Holy fuck.
We did it the right way. Now, of course, Steven is referring to a personal choice that he and his wife made together. Saving sex for marriage is a completely fine and acceptable thing to do, just as it's also fine and acceptable to have sex before marriage. My hot take is that there isn't a right or wrong way to do it, just as long as you and your partner are on the same page. Everyone is different, and that's fine. But Steven disagrees, going on to write that he doesn't care if you feel judged, since he and his wife were apparently mocked all the time. People laughed, scoffed, and poked fun at the young, celibate, naive Christian couple. We'd certainly never make it to the wedding without stupping. Looking back, I think the women saying those things felt like the floozies they ultimately were, and the men, with their fickle manhood tied to their pathetic sexual conquest, felt threatened. Side note, but Steven might possibly be the worst writer I've ever seen, and he's writing it on their honeymoon.
I am feeling threatened.
Sorry, babe, I'll be there in a sec. Finishing up my Fox.
Sorry, babe, I'll be there in a sec. I have to. What the fuck is this? Sorry, babe, I'll finish in a sec. I gotta fucking cope about how you're not giving me any pussy. Holy shit. Jesus Christ. Okay.
Fox News abstinence column before we can get to stupping. I don't want to focus too much on this one article though, since we still have so much else to cover. But for Steven to assume the role of an authoritative figure on the concept of marriage, morally grandstanding on anyone who may have had a different experience than him, only for it to be revealed that he's been abusing his wife behind the scenes for years, tells you everything you need to know about Steven Crowder. This article is an embarrassing read, not just because it's
hey, he's a man with incredible anger problems that were never monitored. I mean, here's the reality, man. I think a lot of men deal with anger problems. I know I have, absolutely. I'm not perfect. I'm not proud of myself for some of the things I've done in the past. I've never hit a partner or anything, but I used to break things, and I used to yell, and I'm sure that was scary, and you don't realize it at the moment or at the time, It's not something that you ever, because I know I'm not going to hurt anybody, but other people don't know that, and it's an unfortunate thing. But I've been working since I was a teenager to get my shit together. It's a lifelong process. I got into therapy for like a long time, get my shit together. A lot of it comes from like, absent no father and shit like that. But I mean, I feel like Steven was never punished for having any of these issues, or not even punished. He was never like, it was never called out. Like, hey, you're acting inappropriately. It seems like he was just constantly validated in his obnoxious behavior. So
littered with incomprehensible slang from what I can only assume is the 1920s, but because it perfectly encapsulates everything Steven represents, a reality in which he conceals his ugly intentions behind a wall of judgment, hate, and hypocrisy in an attempt to spread an ideology. And he's been doing it forever.
Hey guys, Steven Crowder is gay. Changed my mind. I feel like the most homophobic people are gay, right? And transphobic. Because like they're just coping. They're trying to convince themselves that they're not valid to exist. Because most people that don't, that aren't chill with gay people are just like, leave it alone. Like, get that, I also want to see it. But the people who are so against it, they're like, they're getting fucked by like twinks in the background. So, it's true. Gobble that chowder.
In December 2012, the conservative advocacy group Americans for Prosperity, funded by two billionaire brothers, by the way.
Hey, I have one like that, AFP, Americans for Prostitution, baby. Let's get that going. I don't know why I said that.
Crashed a protest in Michigan regarding the state's recently passed anti-union right-to-work law. With the help of Steven Crowder, the group of right-wingers erected a giant tent in an effort to aggravate union members who were there protesting, causing a dispute that resulted in Steven getting punched in the face by a union worker. While the full unedited footage showed the man being first pushed to the ground before getting back up and decking Steven in the jaw, this crucial bit had been mysteriously left out of the version Steven posted to his channel for some reason, making it seem like the man had attacked him unprovoked. This was not only the narrative Steven tried to spin on Fox, but the edited clip ended up being the one sent in to the Ingham County Prosecutor's Office in an attempt to press charges against the union worker.
Wait, so shouldn't that be illegal? Isn't that like falsified information? He should have gotten arrested for that.
Dunning's questioned why Crowder didn't initially provide the original footage to Dunning's office. I'm not holding that against him, but why would they provide the edited video? The longer video clearly shows the guy got pushed down and came up swinging. I think that's the polite way of the prosecutor saying they tried to provide us with false evidence.
Though after reviewing the unedited version, prosecutors ultimately ruled the man in fact acted in self-defense and dropped the case. So at the end of the day, this was all just Steven Crowder whining on national TV about an event that he and his own group instigated.
So on that guy's back, I saw that guy's back go down, and then he came up off his feet. Yeah, there he is. What is that, Steve?
He did go down. We were there trying to prevent people from being on the tent.
You deserve what you got.
You are a liar, sir. You are being swallowed. Your unions are being swallowed. These are babies flailing before being put to bed. They are violent. This was not an isolated event. Look around you, man.
Steven.
Wow, he's just yelling. Did anybody on his own side call him out for like this? Oh, I can't believe I died there. I walked into it too. Did anybody on his own side call him out for being like a fucking crybaby on this? Because like, you know, you guys instigated the violence. You should have been like, oh, well, you know, you take your lick sometimes, bro. It is what it is.
Was finally dropped by Fox News only a few months later for reasons that are still up in the air to this day. Some say it had to do with contract negotiations, while others insist it was because of comments he made about their biggest on-screen talent at the time, Sean Hannity. But most hilarious to me is when one senior employee at Fox told the Daily Beast that Steven was never that funny anyway, and crossed the line more than a few times. Do you have any idea how obnoxious you need to be for even Fox News to turn against you? Damn. Injury, leaked Twitter messages from Fox's very own Greg Gutfeld seem to allude to how frankly unlikable Steven was on a private, personal level. Keep in mind, these messages are all alleged, as I can't personally verify them myself, but it is worth noting that Gutfeld has yet to deny or disprove their legitimacy. Plus, they kinda already fall in line with Steven's public persona, so just let me be messy here for a second. They're funny, okay? He has issues. I met him at a bar once, and he sat Indian style on the floor in the middle of a crowded bar. He was asking me what he thought of the looks of his fiancée. How f***ed up is that? She is beautiful, but he couldn't judge. It was like he was shopping for a car and was asking his friend to take it for a test drive.
Because he's gay. There's nothing wrong with it. He's just gay. That's why I believe that he's gay. He's a closeted gay man. Maybe he's a closeted trans woman. I don't know, but I couldn't tell you. A straight trans woman. Duh.
I nodded and wondered how I got into this mess, adding it, me thinks he has an issue with his sexuality, which is fine, but it's so obvious to everyone but him. He was only at Fox News for like 6 months. We all hated him. He acts like he was a badass who left Fox. No, none of us could stand him. He wants to be a star and hates everyone who took that.
Is this real? Why would this person go on like this rant at somebody about all this? That's the weird thing. But he didn't denounce that it happened. It's just crazy that like he, because this seems like a lot. Is this real chat?
He did it. He calls himself a comedian, but doesn't perform. That's how the Schumer thing started. I would not let him call himself a comedian on my show, and Amy knew that. I hated him for saying he performs. What Gutfeld is alluding to here is an old episode from his show, where Steven and Amy Schumer were both guests, and as you can probably imagine, having
wow.
Here is an old episode from his show, where Steven and Amy Schumer were both guests, and as you can probably
two of the most obnoxious people in the entire world in one fucking room, and they're both white. Maybe some of these SJWs are onto something.
Probably imagine having these two in a room together didn't go well.
And, you know, you slip by the dirty comedian thing, but honestly, you call yourself a comedian, but you don't do it that much. Like, I go fishing a couple times a year, but I don't introduce myself on TV as a fisherman.
I fucking would make it a priority to slam Amy Schumer from the comfort of his own studio any chance he got.
That's
in
funny.
A crusade that you cannot tell me wasn't...
Like, that was actually very funny. That was fucking funny. Bro, stop hurting me. It's not how the game is supposed to be played.
Tiny bit personal.
By the way, Amy Schumer, you're a fat slutty role model. Taking pride in being a fat bag of potatoes. She's the guy she accuses all the guys of being, only she's way gross.
Damn. It's crazy because he's really desperate for her attention, and she probably never acknowledged his existence at all in any capacity after this.
Grosser and fatter.
I'm fat. Snacks.
Triggering the libs, though, would become the focal point of his new show on YouTube, Louder with Crowder, launched soon after his falling out with Fox. And this is where you really get some of the most potent feminist-owned videos that plagued all of YouTube in 2016.
Hey, feminists.
With his first viral
Damn,
video being
he's spitting facts.
#SJW Feminist Festival crashed by Crowder in underwear.
Prove once and for all that not all feminists are fat, unattractive, boy-cutted, androgynous amoebas.
Okay.
Oh my God.
She's a lesbian! A lesbian!
Epic editing there, Steven. Why he needed to go the extra mile and strip down to his underwear is beyond my reasoning, at least. I think him being removed has less to do with him being offended or whatever, and more to do with Steven intentionally irritating and causing a scene on purpose just to get a reaction for the internet.
Excuse me, ma'am. Talk about body shaming? Do you want to talk about male body shaming? Should I be ashamed?
It's not even about politics at a certain point. It's just about Steven being a public fucking nuisance that nobody wants to be around. But after racking up a juicy 30 million views, Steven and his producer, Not Gay Jared, which is
You know, I just hit 10 million views on my channel, on this channel. Isn't that crazy? Not even kidding. Or maybe it was 10 million watch hours. Or maybe it was 1 million watch. It was something. It was a number. It was a number.
Totally normal thing to call your friend, by the way.
It's
But make a
something.
habit of
I
crashing
forget.
these left-leaning events for the sole aim of exposing the liberal agenda, according to them. But if you ask me, it was mostly an excuse for Steven to dress up as a woman, as he liked to do over and over and over and over and over.
I mean, listen, I'm not trying to be that guy, but listen, I had a friend, okay, and their dad, every Halloween, would dress up in the same costume. It was like half guy, half girl. And when I say that, it means like down the middle. That was the Halloween costume. It was, boom, girl on one side, guy on the other side. And I was like, oh, it's silly, funny. You know, you're a kid, you don't get... Now one of his kids is trans. And God bless them, by the way. There's nothing wrong with that at all. Live your truth, friend. But I feel like maybe, you know, maybe there's a connection there. You know, maybe he grew up in a time where it wasn't as acceptable. And, you know, they wasn't able to live his truth. And then now he is. You know? Maybe that's all it is. I'm just saying. I think that there's something to people who like to cross-dress. That maybe it's something there. There's maybe something there.
I'm not going to keep going, but it is funny that for a guy who thinks trans people are grooming your kids, Steven sure can't get enough of wearing his wife's clothes and touching his producer in front of children. Like the time he and Not Gay Jared convinced a bunch of people at a feminist rally that they were trans women and were met with kindness and support by the people there.
We quickly found out that nobody questions, criticizes, nor runs security background checks on trans.
Hands up our pussy!
Why would they? the people who lie the most about being trans seem to be conservatives, pretending to, like, looking for trans people to be liars. Oh, the people are going to pretend to be women and go into the bathrooms and hurt women. And then they're the ones dressing up like women to try to cause some kind of social, like, issue. It's like, wow, how fucking ironic is that? I'm surprised the conservative hasn't dressed up like a woman and and decided to like assault a woman in the bathroom just to prove that trans women are somehow dangerous, even though it was actually a man dressed as a woman trying to predatorize, you know, women. I'm surprised. I'm surprised we haven't seen it yet. It's me, Steven Crowder. I'm going to dress up like a woman, and I'm going to go assault women in the bathroom to prove that trans people are violent. Oh. Okay. The only thing is, I don't think Steven Crowder would ever assault a woman, because, well, at least not sexually, because he's gay, but he would physically assault a woman, because it seems like he possibly does that to his, you know, wife. You know, although it just seemed to be horrible verbal abuse. Not physical, so.
This grabs back.
Nice going, Steven. You really own those feminists by lying to them and taking advantage of their hospitality for cheap clicks. You definitely look like the reasonable person in this picture. I guess it's hard to tell. These videos on Louder with Crowder really didn't contain much substance outside of Steven working backwards from an already established conclusion to prove some kind of flawed hypothesis. Sometimes not even he understands what it is he's truly arguing for. Take, for example, his position on trans athletes. Steven personally wants to see trans people competing in sports with
the world has finally banned transgender athletes.
The gender they were assigned to at birth. It's something.
Yeah, I mean, I personally, here's my thing, is that I'm very trans affirming, but at the end of the day, when it comes to sports, if we allow trans women in sports, especially those who go through a male puberty, they're going to end up pushing cisgender women out of sports. Even if like only 5% of the people in, like, of the women in sports are trans, they're still going to rise to top. It's just like it's just a reality, and I feel bad, you know, but that's something to consider. If you don't care about that fact, like, okay, but I personally, I get it. I do. So yeah, I'm gonna die.
Something he's long propagated across his platforms. But here he is complaining about just that.
This is Mark Beggs, a senior from Euless Trinity High School near Dallas, is in the process of transitioning from female to male and taking low dose of testosterone. Just entered a high school wrestling tournament with an undefeated record and, surprise, won.
That picture says 1,000 words right there.
Hey, Steven, that is a trans man competing with cis women. He's being...
What? I'm confused.
But here he is, even he understands what it is he's truly arguing for. Take, for example, his position on trans athletes. Steven personally wants to see trans people competing in sports with the gender they were assigned to at birth.
Okay.
It's something he's long propagated across his platforms. But here he is complaining about just that.
This is Mark Beggs, a senior from Euless Trinity High School near Dallas, is in the process of transitioning from female to male and taking low dose of testosterone. Just entered a high school wrestling tournament with an undefeated record and, surprise!
Oh, so the criticism is that, like, oh, he said he wanted people that were, like, assigned a particular... Oh, well, I'm fucking dead. Were assigned a particular gender at birth and then to compete, and now he's complaining because this was somebody born a woman. So that person is is basically on performance-enhancing drugs if they're on testosterone. So they would have a rather unfair advantage because of that. So the criticism from Crowder, he's not being hypocritical in any capacity here. Let's just be real.
One.
That picture says 1,000 words right there.
Hey, Steven, that is a trans man competing with cis women.
Yeah,
He's
basically on steroids.
being forced to compete with women because that's what people like you are arguing for. This is what you want. And this trans wrestler in particular, Mac Beggs, has openly expressed wanting to compete with cis men because it just makes more sense, but he can't do that because Republican-backed Texas law currently requires trans athletes to play in an athletic league.
But and also, let's be real, like, there is a difference between trans men and, like, trans women competing. Like, for the most part, no cisgender male is worried about a trans woman or a trans man beating them in any sport. So, like, people, that would be another thing as well. There is a general difference, right? Like, yeah. So just to be clear,
which matches their biological sex determined at birth, something that Steven encourages and supports.
My position is biological males compete with biological males, biological females compete with biological females.
Like, Steven, if you're watching, first of all, hi, what the f did you mean by this tweet? And secondly, just suspend your political bias for a minute and imagine if there were hundreds of bills circulating around the country invalidating your right to live a normal life. Imagine if your basic access to healthcare, education, legal recognition, etc. was all up in the air for a small group of politicians to dictate. Something about that seems wildly big government to me, a gross overstep of legislative power that a small government conservative like yourself should...
Oh yeah, if you want to make the argument that, like, Crowder is a broken clock that's right twice a day, like, I agree. He just hates trans people, so he's never going to have an intelligent take on anything. But he happens to be right about the sports stuff.
Proud upon. But Steven Crowder and the dozens of other vocal opponents of trans rights, freedom of expression is trumped by blind hatred for those that are just different from them. Despite freedom being one of the deciding factors that makes America the best country in the world, according to Steven.
But not only do I believe that our healthcare system is superior to those countries, but there would be another reason outside of healthcare. Let's assume that healthcare were better in those countries. Freedom.
But it's just he doesn't believe everyone deserves the same access to the fundamental freedoms he's been given. At least that's what it seems. Steven does.
I mean, America might have the best healthcare if you have a ton of money to afford it, but if you don't have money to afford it, you know what I mean? Like, that's one of the problems there. Holy moly, I'm getting my ass.
Does it seem to value those he personally deems inferior, and would rather resort to ostracizing them in a public setting the same way he was ostracized and bullied as a child.
I'd rather have, like, healthcare that was a little bit worse, that was accessible to everybody, than something that's slightly better for, like, some people.
Oh, but don't you feel a little bad for the bully? He's just a kid. I feel zero bad for him. And you know what happens when bullies aren't stepped down early in their childhood?
Gaddafi. You'd hope someone like Steven, who has talked about being on the receiving end of relentless bullying throughout his life, would be one to stand up for those who have...
That does make sense, because he is a theater nerd, and theater nerds do deserve to be bullied.
And unfairly attacked for committing the cardinal sin of trying to live a normal life like the rest of us. But instead, Steven takes the low road and chooses to relish in the power he now gets to wield as the bully himself.
I think it's better that the bully learn his lesson now as opposed to later on in life when somebody snaps as an adult. It gets uglier.
Steven Crowder, a man who ironically brags about his strong Christian values, likes to spend his time berating people who strangely aren't white by threatening to call ICE on Mexican workers.
I need papers. Do you have papers?
He's gonna call ICE, you motherfuckers.
Steven enjoys showing...
Oh, what an epic prank. Like, listen, I get it. We shouldn't have people here in the country illegally, but also if you come here illegally, I get it. Like, I'm not. If I went to like a local 7-Eleven or something, or some restaurant or whatever, and the guy's like, I'm illegal. I don't tell him. I don't care. Like, what am I? That's the fucking government's job to deal with, not mine. You know what I mean? Like, I would do it too if I was living in a fucking poor country and one of my kids have access to better like shit. I would fucking. How am I supposed to blame you?
Off his impression of Martin Luther King Jr.
5 things you don't know about.
Who's worse? Who's more obnoxious, Matt Walsh or Crowder? That's a good question. Probably Walsh because he hasn't been denounced by people yet.
MLK, but you didn't expect to hear MLK and crack whores. I have a dream of non-crack whores at a Motel 6.
And when he's not making a mockery of black farmers,
I don't know where you find this many farmers of color. I'm on black. Buy a plow, man.
I'm gonna plant that corn.
Go get a John Deere. For Barack Obama, I'm the president. I'm plowing that head.
I planted a Hennessy tree, but it's not growing.
Turns out the soil content is a high level of meth.
Crazy.
Wow, I didn't know.
He's disingenuously recreating George Floyd's murder in an attempt to exonerate the psychopath convicted of killing him.
Was it unpleasant? Yes. Is there
I wouldn't call the guy a psychopath. He's just your typical cop.
any way that would kill someone who was in moderate health? I can't see it.
Steven's been known to make a mockery of.
Well, you know, we're not really supposed to choke people out, especially when you have full control over them. You know what I mean? So this probably has something to do with why people are upset about that. I don't know, but okay.
Asian people on the sole premise of them being Asian.
Oh, that is an aggressively Asian face.
When he's not wearing a dress or cosplaying as a rootin' tootin' sheriff with his fake little gun holsters in his studio, he's poking fun at whatever he thinks Islam is.
Islam, the religion of peace. Allah Akbar!
Excusing the torture.
Well, I mean, I would say that a lot. I don't know how. There's not many religions of peace. Okay, Christianity certainly isn't one. Islam isn't one. All of these religions are used to oppress gay people, and women.
Torture America inflicted against prisoners at Guantanamo Bay.
I personally believe that prison should be as unpleasant as humanly possible. Let's take a look at some of these torture.
I don't. Generally, people should have the ability to recover from going to prison. You know, should rehabilitate those people. Prison is to get people off the streets and away from law-abiding citizens, and also to reform those people.
For techniques used at Club Gitmo. We've got slight sleep deprivation, repeatedly playing children's songs. People out there, do you honestly believe that America is losing its moral high ground and consider this torture?
Killing 2 birds with 1 stone in his embarrassing.
I mean, some kind of like, I think that that's like deprivation. That's right. That's fucks you up. It fucks up with it gives you like, it messes with your time, your ability to perceive time. It's like a torture.
Trail of not just Muslims, but also trans people in his critically acclaimed video, Translur Bane versus Jihadi Bond, which are 2 different franchises. I mean, that one doesn't even make sense. Steven loves to make the exact same joke about trans people every single year on Trans Day of Visibility. Confusingly blamed trans rights activists for there being a higher rate of trans suicides.
Is anyone surprised when it's a 42% attempted suicide rate? You don't have that anywhere else in the demographic. That would suggest some kind of mental proclivity toward extreme behavior, and I don't think it's helping people to simply enable it. I don't want nearly half of all transgenders to attempt suicide. I want that to be lower. Guess what doesn't work? You saying, you're all good, you're a woman. It doesn't help, it makes it worse.
I mean, trans-affirming care does objectively, it's been shown to help more than oppressing those people. It's just factually incorrect. To make sure we get the diagnosis right and we're all good.
Had this to say about victims.
Wouldn't it stand to reason that the victims of rape...
I think it said if a feminist is raped in the forest and no one hears it, did it really happen? I don't know.
This to say about...
Oh, is she still heinously unattractive? Oh, God, it's funny.
Victims.
Wouldn't it stand to reason that the victims of rape would usually, not always, generally be those who are most desirable sexually, considering the crime?
Maybe like the 5s to 10s.
I mean, like you don't carjack a 98 Oldsmobile. No. I've searched, and I could be wrong about this. There are many, right? How many times have I been to a change my mind? It's always a blue-haired, would-be lesbian feminist who claim they're raped. As far as I know, not one Victoria's Secret model has been raped.
And at the beginning of his career, did a really fun and tasteful bit he liked to call Cultural Appropriation Week, where for about 5 days straight, he and not gay Jared began their show dressed in whatever caricature of a costume they had lying around that day.
This week, the mystical, age-old culture of China.
I like the glasses with that combination. Like it's kind of like the other woman.
Oh, hey, what's going on? Got a Joe Bartolosi raid. What's going on, guys? Jesus Christ. What's going on, guys? How are you? Thank you for the raid, Joe. How's it been, man? How's it been going?
Wow. Okay.
He looks like that Darkstalkers character. Who's that? Who's the girl? The Darkstalkers. Oh, this girl. I can't even fucking pronounce her name, bro. Because I'm just as racist as Steven Crowder. This one.
Now, I understand Steven's fans may be quick to write these things off as nothing more than edgy jokes, and that his critics are just being snowflakes for getting mad at such top-tier...
I mean, listen, I have no problem with edgy humor. I enjoy it myself. But humor has always been used as like a way to push a particular idea. People love people like George Carlin because they're political comedians. And they use humor to push like, real ideas. And like that's what you're seeing Crowder do. He's not just making a silly little joke about how Asians or something. He's trying to break down the entire group of people. That's the joke. The joke is to just be racist.
But it's hard to make the argument that these are just mere jokes when they still accurately reflect the real beliefs Steven appears to hold. For example, Steven has stated that he's a traditionalist who doesn't believe in the concept of gay marriage.
Myself, personally, I am pro traditional marriage. I agree with the president on this.
You can't then turn around and make such unfunny jokes at the expense of gay people and expect viewers to suck it up and buy your socialism is for figs shirt.
Gayness is still funny. It's absurd, so it's funny. It would be the same thing if a
It's absurd. It's absurd.
duck walked in right now wearing pajamas. We'd be like, oh my God, there's a duck in pajamas. What are you doing at CPAC, duck in pajamas? I would have never imagined that. It's the same thing when there's a dude like, hello, you look delicious.
There's just no way to genuinely write this stuff off as innocent jokes when it's rooted in something that you genuinely believe.
Why do people find that funny? I don't really get it. I guess it's just like there's starvation for conservative comedy or something.
By 2019, Steven had really taken off in popularity, thanks to a little series he likes to call Change My Mind, which is ironically...
Hey guys, I'm gonna go to In Joseph We Trust, thank you. Change My Mind is really just going to a college campus full of like young people who aren't super explored on their political ideology, with every talking point that you want to push out there with information on it, even if it's wrong. Typically biased information, to win a debate and make it seem like people don't know what the fuck they're talking about. That's all it really boils down to. Like, I mean, it's just trying to go after like young people who aren't prepared for a debate to debate them. That's really all it is.
Something Steven never actually does. Even if you've never watched an episode of this thing, you've probably seen the memes. The premise is that Steven travels around to various locations, mostly college campuses, and sets up a booth to debate random people on whatever issue he's feeling that day. Maybe it's fascism, gender, immigration, Black Lives Matter is a terrorist organization, you know, non-incendiary topics like those. For the most part, he uses pretty eye-catching...
How do I focus on the video while playing the game? I just suck at the game more when I'm when I'm watching a video. That's all it is. I'm just playing the game like shit while I play.
An intentionally offensive language.
I'm not actually this bad at it.
To trigger a more passionate response from the people there. Why? Well, it's exciting to watch people scream at each other.
I have one. We should feed dogs to homeless people. Change my mind. Hear me out. They go to kill shelters anyway and get put down. Might as well do something with the meat. Maybe you can make a jacket out of the fur. I don't know. It's just a thought.
Yes. Plus, it's always helpful to make the opposing side look as unreasonable and shrill as possible. Steven is banking on the fact that most of these kids are liberal, so having a substantive conversation with someone who disagrees with him shouldn't be a hard thing to do. But the problem with these debates...
Well, there are also young people on colleges, and I think one of the things we do really wrong... Do you agree? I think one of the things we do really wrong is that we don't teach people to engage with ideas that they're not used to in like a constructive way. In the same like vein that Steven Crowder is, or in the same way that Steven Crowder is just looking to, talk to people who aren't necessarily super educated on what they think, because you don't really have to be. When you agree with what everybody else thinks, you don't have to be educated on why your perspective is right, because it's generally just accepted. And so like he's going and having conversations with people who don't really know what they're talking about, and they're young and they're not really used to getting pushback on things, and so they have like a meltdown, right? And so we do as a society need to do a better job at educating people on why they're right about a topic. Like, don't just say, oh, I think that like abortion is okay. Don't just say that like trans people are valid. They are, but like have an actual reason why. You should be able to explain to somebody. You should be able to explain to your decrepit 80-year-old grandmother who's kind of homophobic and transphobic why like it's okay to be trans and why it's like a real thing. You know, so it was cute though. My wife was talking to her grandmother, and old people are they're a little dated, of course, on topics sometimes. And she was like, I don't understand why people are so upset about trans people existing. They've always existed. They just feel comfortable now to come out about it. And I was like, oh, very very based grandmother right?
The scales are already tipped so much in Steven's
Just a
favor
little
that it's
tad
really
dated.
not much of an evenly matched exchange of ideas.
You start taking hormone therapy, it changes the way your muscles grow, and you're not actually given that much of an advantage, or they don't have as much of an advantage as you think they might.
They do.
Sure about that?
Well, I guess I'm not sure, but I also am not sure about anything. So I'm moron, you know.
This is his show after all, so of course Steven picks the topic, the setting, the circumstances,
fuck my
who
balls.
gets the microphone and when, what makes the final edit and what doesn't. Plus, he's already given himself ample time beforehand to prepare his talking points as much as he needs, whereas the kids he's debating left their dorms that morning not expecting to debate their beliefs on things like abortion. They haven't made a career off politics like Steven has, making them easy targets.
I'm pro-life as well. I think that every single time a man doesn't ejaculate into a woman, and every time a woman allows her period to come out, that is you're killing a potential human life, and that should be a sin in the eyes of God. Every egg should be impregnated. And you might be saying, like, Papa God, that sounds horribly oppressive to women that start having their periods at a young age. It doesn't matter. I'm pro-life. You have everything is a potential human life. Has to be birthed. Let's just go all the way, dude. Don't half-ass it. I'm gonna fucking die again. Holy shit. Jesus Christ.
Targets for him to rain down upon with facts and logic, even when those facts aren't actually facts. For example, take his video, America is Not Racist, Change My Mind. Steven at one point claims that the US has a higher class mobility compared to the rest of the world.
He used to, you know.
First off, we have more class mobility here in the United
We
States
probably do more than most other countries. Most other countries are not first world countries.
than anywhere else. Certainly than Canada.
Define class mobility for me.
Meaning there are more people in the United States who end up in the top 30% of income than anywhere else in the world. At some point in their life, or in the top 10%, including people go from the top 10, from the bottom 10 or the bottom 30, the top 30, the top.
Well, is that mobility? Is he talking about mobility, or just saying that people tend to have better outcomes?
There's more class mobility here in the United States, more ability to rise out of poverty into upper middle class than anywhere else in the world. It's not even close.
Only I don't know what Steven is going by. Sure, he links to an image of a random study on screen, but even this doesn't show the US compared to the rest of the world. According to the World Economic Forum, America ranks 27th beneath all these other countries. Not what I would call high, personally. And another one on abortion.
Well, it's like 200 and something countries now, so it is high comparatively, but compared to other first world countries, it's pretty low.
Steven finds himself perpetuating the notion that the majority of late-term abortions are not a result of medical complications, but rather because the woman just feels like doing it.
Yeah, that's not true either. Mostly it's a medical complication. Like, not for nothing, but if a woman has decided, or a person, okay, because trans men get pregnant too. If a person has decided that, if a person's at 9 months or 8 months, they are not looking to abort that. They don't want to abort that. That's a child to them already. The overwhelming majority of them are only doing it because there was some kind of a medical necessity, whether there was a harm to the mother or the child, or in some capacity. So,
you know, women who do have late-term abortions, they're not out here walking around at 8 months pregnant saying, you know what, I don't feel like having this baby anymore, let's just get rid of it.
Sure they are.
No, they're not.
That's almost all late-term abortions.
No. There's a majority that
there's-
are medically induced and necessary.
No, not a majority.
Well, whatever ones
As a matter
that
of
are
fact,
not,
nearly
then those
never.
are not.
But I'm not sure where Steven got this either, considering just how exceedingly rare abortions in the third trimester even are, making up for only 1% of all abortions across the US. This means that data on why women would need to get an abortion later into the pregnancy is extremely limited.
So the term late-term abortion is not a medical term, and it often really complicates this discussion because people kind of take it to mean something like a third trimester abortion or abortion just before or during birth, which are not really things that happen. And I think that it kind of really distracts from the conversation when people use that terminology. For reference, only about 1.5% of US abortions happen after 20 weeks. And this is usually what people are referencing when they say, quote, late term. The percent of those that are due to life threat or lethal fetal anomalies is really hard to track because they aren't always reported. And when they are reported, they aren't always reported with a reason. But a vast majority of them will be because of a lethal fetal anomaly or a serious complication and risk to the person who's pregnant. I would venture to say that all abortions that happen between 20 and 24 weeks fall into 3 categories. Most will fall into those 2 groups of a life risk or lethal fetal anomaly, and the remainder are people who wanted to have an abortion earlier but didn't have access. So the irony here is that people who talk about this, Crowder absolutely included, are almost always against easier access in the first trimester, which directly increases how many people seek termination later on in pregnancy.
that makes sense too. There's also a lot of these, they're usually religiously run things where what they do is they'll pretend that they care about the mother, and you know the mother usually will go in for like an abortion or something, and she'll be like, oh, I want to get an abortion. And what they do is they'll tell her that she has more time left than she actually does to get it. So they tell her to come back later, and by the time she comes back, the her time has gone away in her state, and they've successfully bullied somebody into having a kid, right? So it's pretty sad stuff, man. So when shit like that happens, I mean, I imagine if they really wanted to get the abortion at that point, they'd have to go to a different state to get it performed. It's tragic.
Have had more patients than I can count who have experienced not only the trauma of having to end a pregnancy that they wanted, but then having to go on and be repeatedly traumatized mentally by family and friends, having these conversations in such black and white, non-compassionate manners. We cannot forget the fact that this number is probably going to go up because we have taken away access that was previously difficult and now is impossible for probably 50% of people in the US. So the only outcome of that is going to be that more abortions happen later in pregnancy because people have to spend time and money figuring out how to get access when they can't get access where they live or in the state that they're in.
The issues that Stephen tries to condense into just a few short words are far, far more nuanced than he'd have you believe. And he does this kind of thing constantly. Like here, when he insists America's healthcare system is the best in the world simply because hospitals in Canada and Europe have a higher mortality rate, which apparently means they have worse care.
Don't just look at the one portion of...
Well, that would make sense if they have a higher mortality rate, but why would they have a higher mortality rate?
The equation, how much are you spending? What are you getting from it? What is the rest of the world getting from privately funded healthcare?
The reason why less Americans are dying in a hospital, if true, wouldn't have to do with hospitals in America being better quality. It actually just means more Americans are dying at home because they can't afford to die in a hospital.
That might be true. I don't know if that is true, but it's possible. That might be true. Interesting.
Which you might recognize as literally the opposite of his point.
But Stephen will stop at nothing to make sure he comes
I wonder if that's true. I should look into that in a little bit.
out looking smarter than the other person in the heat of debate, even if he needs to pivot to another talking point. If you watch enough of these, you'll sometimes hear Stephen say things to the effect of, hold that thought, or let's put a pin in that, when his opponent says something that actually makes sense. Only Stephen never comes back around to those points.
What's your position on the minimum wage?
Hold on a second. Is this your changing my mind? I want to make sure.
Yes, I want to get started.
Okay, my position on the minimum wage. Yeah. You know what? I'm not a fan.
Are you against illegal immigration and...
I'm not a fan. Why? So I'm obviously a fan of minimum wage. Duh. Like, who the fuck wouldn't be? I'm not a fan of drastically increasing. I think it should be increased based on inflation every year. And then the implementation of something. I mean, I'm a UBI kind of guy as well, so I just don't think that it's a good idea to put all the stress, especially on smaller businesses, because like Walmart can afford to pay minimum wage for people and then just cut costs by massively investing into technology, which they've already done effectively. Whereas like, you know, your mom and pop shop can't really afford that. So we should figure out better ways to we should focus on new, interesting ideas in order to deal with like the issue of people not being able to have enough money to survive.
Illegal immigration from poor third world countries.
Of course I'm against illegal immigration.
I don't. I played. You know what happened? I actually played a little bit of League of Legends last week on my phone. I played Wild Rift. It wasn't bad. And what happened was I was playing while my wife was sleeping next to me, and I was being so racist. My wife woke up and said, "You delete that game right now." Because, you know, I'm not a racist person unless I'm either driving or playing League of Legends. I'm just being honest with you, okay? So I deleted it promptly. I listened to my wife. I love my wife, you know, so I don't play that game. I'm not mature enough to do it.
Well, I'm trying to convince you that your own objectives, if you're a conservative, cannot be achieved under capitalism.
Okay.
And so I'll give you an example of that.
Yeah.
You have a lot of Republicans like Paul Ryan. You cannot deny that he is a big capitalist, and he has lots of capitalist donors that would like nothing more than to increase their profits. I think you can agree with that. And people like that have been opposing immigration reform for decades because they believe that mass immigration will lower the wages of the working class and increase their profits.
Okay, so I would agree with you.
That's actually true, yeah, sure.
So if you impose a minimum wage, you're not going to have this mass immigration coming in because the companies that are taking these illegal immigrants and taking these low-wage immigrants, if they had to pay them $15 an hour, we wouldn't have mass immigration like we're having right now.
Yeah,
it's actually an interesting point. I guess I never thought of it like that. Interesting.
I don't necessarily know that I agree with that premise. So let me kind of go, because first off, before I would like to take that, hold it. What example we point to before we go on? Because I know a lot of times we disagree, of a successful socialist country.
They just get forgotten as the conversation trails elsewhere. Stephen also loves to move the goalposts when he senses his opponent making an argument.
This is why you shouldn't be going places to debate, because that's an interesting point that people should like consider. The idea that there are Republicans who actually don't care about the minimum wage because they're business owners first and want to like not have to pay people a livable wage.
He isn't able to disprove.
The idea that there have been different genders outside of man-woman for centuries.
Okay, how so?
Yeah,
sure.
India.
Yeah,
in
sure.
India, you know, they have their gender. Native American cultures, they have their genders.
Sure.
In ancient Egypt, they had their genders.
Okay, so you do realize, you talked about how very different it was from Western culture. So antithetical to Western culture, you named India, ancient Egypt. You know what else? We also believe in that's antithetical to those cultures. We're against slavery.
Yeah, in spite of religion, not because of it, by the way. Sure, who cares? It's completely irrelevant. The fundamental concept is that there seems to be something innate to human beings that has them identify as a different gender. Just like there seems to be something innate to human beings that have them identify with like a greater power, like a god. And I think that those two things could possibly be similar in some capacity. I don't know, maybe it's the same fundamental feeling. Maybe that, like, I don't really know. But yeah, just because we don't like slavery as a society, or at least not active slavery, but you know, we still do prison slavery, paying people like 8 cents on the hour to do something in prison. And then, of course, companies can profit off that. Meanwhile, American workers don't have access to that job, right? It takes away from because people are doing it for 8 cents an hour. It doesn't mean that gender couldn't have existed throughout all time. So
he tried to claim the idea of two genders was a new one. When the individual in classes corrected him with historical examples that proved him wrong, he immediately pivots.
Stephen is relying on the people he's debating to not be prepared, so it's easier to twist the conversation wherever and however he wants. And if things get too hot, he can always just pass the mic to someone more naive.
Define, because it's a very specific definition. You came in and just said shill. And really quickly get ready to give the microphone to someone else. If you don't stop doing this, because this isn't the goal of this. What's a shill?
Well, I think you're getting upset because you're losing the debate.
Oh, base.
But
that's fair. That's fair. Name again?
Yusuf.
Yusuf. I appreciate Yusuf taking the time. Everyone, give a hand to Yusuf. Appreciate it very much. We'll grab someone else here. Thank you, Yusuf.
Or, you know,
he wanted to hit him, bro. You can see the anger. The anger bubbling up.
Just using a woman's own abortion against her.
Maybe let me tell you something. What you ended was a unique genetic code that had eye color, hair color, how tall it would be, how much it would weigh, its personality, proclivity toward mental illness, what kind of hair pattern to male pattern baldness. When you had that abortion performed, you eliminated.
Absolutely. I play that clip every single time before I'm about to masturbate, to try to shame me out of doing it, because I'm doing the same thing. I got some unique genetic code all over my very thick and hard socks. You know what I mean? And I you know, sometimes you got to see it through, my boy. Got to see it through. You got to see it through, bro. It doesn't work. I still end up jerking off, but you know,
all of that.
It's true.
The fact is that it was a choice, and it was something that had to be done.
Like, even if you're pro-life, what kind of excuse is it to weaponize something so personal against someone for the sake of looking cool in an amateur debate with a college student? Just a cruel example of his strategy to come out looking intellectually and morally superior, no matter the cost. On the surface, this show may present Stephen as having a willingness to change his mind if someone can convince him to do so. But that's not the same sentiment he expressed in this clip at the beginning of the series.
So it's important, this isn't about just a debate or a highlight reel. The point to this exercise is to actually get people to question their own point of view and see if their argument is rational. And maybe at the end of it, they'll end up changing their own mind.
See, in case it wasn't painfully obvious enough, Stephen never intends to change his mind. I know, hard to believe. After so many episodes of this show, the only thing that Stephen's ever reconsidered is his opinion on Teslas. Now he likes them, I guess, because they personally benefit him and his wife.
I have changed my mind on a subject.
Really?
Teslas, let's go.
Great.
Was that around the time Elon Musk bought Twitter and everybody thought he was going to be a massive freedom of speech advocate or something?
Change My Mind series, though, has never been anything more than cheap entertainment, masquerading as some open and intellectual exchange of ideas, in which Stephen's beliefs somehow always end up looking the best. Stephen knows his audience doesn't want to see evenly matched debates. That's boring. They want someone dunking on a woke college freshman on their way to their next gender studies class or whatever. They want their preconceived view of the—
This guy sounds a little bit like Matt Pat. You guys know that guy? I don't know him personally, but
world validated, and Stephen is more than happy to provide them a safe space. I mean, if he were really looking to have a productive and nuanced conversation, wouldn't he debate real experts as opposed to naive undergrad students? There's a reason he's continuously backed out of debates with—
I mean, that is probably why he wanted to talk to Ethan Klein instead of Sam Seder. Let's be real. But yeah, interesting.
People you'd think are on Stephen's same level of political prowess. Take a Peter Hadfield, for example, a YouTuber who frequently debunks pseudoscience and climate change denialism on his channel. After baselessly trying to refute Hadfield in 2017, Stephen Crowder challenged him to a debate, to which Hadfield accepted, but—
It's so weird because people are so married to their perspectives because they're so narrative first, but like, who cares if you change your mind on a topic? That's not a bad thing necessarily. It's good to have convictions, and it's good to also be open to having a difference in perspective and changing your mind. Like, if you operate with what's actually correct first, and you build your idea off of that, instead of having an idea that you're desperately looking for certain information to uphold that idea, like if you operate in that capacity, you're just going to be better off. You know?
Was surprised to see Stephen fail to show up at their previously scheduled live stream. Well, I'm sure there's a good reason for that. Maybe that was during one of Stephen's many hospital visits. I mean, who's to say? He'd only do this again with Cody Johnston, a left-leaning YouTuber who challenged Stephen's position on gun control in 2017.
I pointed to an actual investigation done by the state of New York with actual hidden camera footage of someone actually trying to buy and successfully buying a gun at a gun show. That's all I pointed out. And his response to this was to tweet in all caps, "Challenge accepted," and then say we would debate. Not would you debate me, but treating my little segment as a direct challenge and request to debate him. I would show this tweet of his, but he deleted all of the tweets associated with it. Here's my response, if that helps. I still am not sure what he wanted to debate.
But perhaps the most famous instance of Stephen debate dodging is with Sam Seder, another political commentator and voice of Hugo on Bob's Burgers, who Stephen has tried to avoid at all costs.
That is real!
When he
Holy fuck, it is his voice. That's crazy. Is that real? No, that's not real. He's lying. Is that really Hugo and Bob? Am I getting fucking stun locked by a lie right now? Holy shit. There's no way that that's actually real, right? Somebody look that up. I want to look it up in a second, but I got to run back to base. Hold on. Hugo, Bob's Burgers, voice. It is Sam Seder. Wow, incredible.
Inexplicably dropped out of a debate with Sam at the 2018 Politicon, then hilariously tried to lie about it, which may not have been the best move, considering there's an entire phone call out there with an event organizer confirming Stephen got, quote, cold feet and had to bail at last minute.
You've never gone to is the phone call.
I did want to talk
I can't believe that's actually him.
to you about the debate.
Okay.
So it seems that Steven Crowder has maybe gotten some cold feet.
Okay.
And feeling a little intimidated, so I don't think he's coming.
He's not even gonna...
Personally, when my feet get cold, I just put the blankie on them. That's it. Very simple.
Come?
Right.
Come?
Why is that?
Come.
You know, it's a great question. I would love to ask it to him myself. He's not even answering anymore. I don't know what his team is doing around him, and that's, just for me to say.
What's up with this thing where he decides he's going to debate somebody and then just doesn't? I mean, if you don't want to debate people, like, whatever, but why... I mean, his entire career is based off debating people. He literally has a change my mind segment. I don't get it.
Late at this point, I don't know.
Does he come up with like bullshit excuses that he wouldn't debate like every single person that he wants to debate? I wonder.
He has a team. He has a whole team, and he won't do it. He can bring the team.
I believe it's his father, but I can't confirm or deny that.
His dad's like, Steven, you're gonna get fucking crushed. Steven, you're gonna get decimated.
All right.
I'm not
So now that we're all up to speed, let's fast forward to summer 2021, where Stephen gets into an argument with Ethan Klein, challenging him to a debate. Ethan accepted, but days before it was all supposed to go down, Ethan tapped Sam Seder and asked if he would want to pop into their call the following Monday. Sam agreed, but in order to be there on time, Sam ended his show that day 30 minutes earlier than usual. Everything was going according to plan until minutes before the H3 podcast went live. Ethan receives an email from Stephen's booker, his dad, it's his dad, let's be honest, that Stephen's pregnant wife had to be rushed to the hospital and that they'd need to reschedule for the week after. Because the timing was so peculiar, Ethan immediately suspected Stephen's team must be keeping an eye on Sam's show and canceled out of...
That's weird. They're that like, okay, interesting. Did he lie about his wife? That'd be sad.
Fear that he may ambush Stephen during the H3 pod.
Or maybe he just got so angry that he heard about Sam Seder turning his show, like ending his show early, that he beat his wife and then she went to the hospital. That's terrible. I shouldn't laugh at that. And that it was just like, but he did it because he hit her. You know what I mean? Because he's pretty. I don't know if he is abusive, but he's certainly suggests as much with the way that he was yelling at her.
Podcast, to which Sam was quick to dismiss.
And it's not even just like how shitty he was to his wife. It was that like he lied about it and made her seem like a bad person, like over his shortcomings as a man, you know?
At first, only for Stephen to later admit to monitoring Sam's show after the fact. That's how terrified Stephen was of facing this man in anything even resembling a debate.
You're so clever. I had no idea that you were taking your show off early last time, coming in today with your pigpen peanuts on.
I'm very genuinely unsure what it is about Sam Seder that strikes so much fear into Steven Crowder, but by the time the H3 debate finally rolled around, Stephen's worst nightmare finally came to fruition. And I do mean nightmare.
Oh, there he is. Oh no, Sam Seder. What a fucking nightmare. I had no idea this was going to happen. I thought Ethan was a stand-up guy. This is where we are. Yeah, I told Dave.
Well, that was your first mistake.
Dave, remember I told you? I said, I guarantee you he's going to do anything he can to avoid the debate.
The day Steven was meant to go live with Ethan, Sam had pre-taped his show and aired it as if it were live to trick Steven's team into thinking it was safe, assuming they were watching. Turns out they definitely were, and were entirely blindsided when Sam joined the call. And as you could probably guess, things got messy fast.
You take those off of the velveteen buttons?
We must have been
Black
very worried
eyes,
about
aren't
this,
they? Like-
Stephen. I don't know why.
No
It would
one's
be-
worried
Oh, come
about
on,
it,
so
Sam. I
concerned.
want to
Well,
do
let's-
it.
Let's have a
Sam,
debate.
come
If
on.
no
Steven,
strong
you are
leaders-
such a coward.
Stop showing your little leprechaun co-host who comes out dressed like your
Ethan, come on,
sidekick.
Ethan, why do you have to bring on a
Show
guy who
Steven!
So he can't build an audience, and so what
Why
happens is
are
he
you so
uploads 15
worried about-
times more,
Do you think
has
your
less than a
audience
50th of the
says-
audience.
Well, that's
Do
why
you
he wants to
think that
debate
your
you, is so he
audience-
can build his...
Do you
Sam,
think
come on.
your audience...
Hey, that's how it be sometimes, baby. You got a lot of followers, and you don't always get a lot of views. You know, it is what it is, bro. It's just the way YouTube works.
That I only have 1 million subscribers and you have what, 6 or 7 million
I think,
subscribers?
let me answer, can I answer your
don't
question?
think
Can I
they
answer
do.
your question? Can I answer your question?
Sure.
You want me to answer your question? My audience would say Sam who?
How did you
Professor
know?
Ooh, Sam who? Then who?
I ended
This
my
is what
show
Cookie's not
early
The cookie jar song was a joke. Get it?
last week, Stephen. If your audience doesn't
Because
even
you're
know
an
me,
idiot,
how
and
did you
half of
know
your
that?
staff
Do
doesn't
you
like
watch my
you.
show?
Sam, fake stand-up comic who we can't
That's kind of funny considering Steven Crowder's staff like all came out against him.
find any footage about online. Let
I'm
me
not a
finish.
stand-up comic.
Oh, you're not? Okay, that makes sense because everything that I've seen is incredibly unfunny and unentertaining.
Well,
which may
I'm
explain
not
the
a
audience.
stand-up
Irony alert, Steven.
Thank you.
Coward.
Steve, won't even take off
Irony alert, Steven.
the glasses.
I was right.
All right, yeah,
We
you
knew
can
you
run
would
away.
away.
You run away twice. Cold feet again.
Come on, Stephen.
Wow.
Becoming extremely irate, Steven went off on Ethan, switching his camera over to his co-host, and left the call within minutes of Sam showing up. No debate happened, because according to Steven, Ethan took the coward's way out. But then again, Ethan Klein has never claimed to be
I mean, like, it is still, that is true. Ethan did, I guess you could say, take the coward's way out. The problem is that it's not like Steven Crowder. Steven Crowder keeps trying to dodge the debate, so he is literally the coward. Right? So, like, whatever. You know what I mean? Steven wasn't there to have, like, an actual real conversation with Ethan. He was there so that he could, like, well, he thought he could steamroll Ethan, which would probably have been true, to be honest with you. So, that's the only reason he took it, because he only takes the battles that he feels like he can win. That's pretty much it.
a master debater.
Although maybe he wouldn't have steamrolled him because he's just kind of an idiot too. I mean, Crowder is really dumb. Like he's almost impressively fucking stupid. It's crazy.
Steven was aware of, referring to Ethan as a layup in the days ahead of the debate. Not everyone is as experienced in the great halls of debate. I get it, I'm the same way. But Steven, on the other hand, does this kind of thing for a living. You would expect a little bit more from someone like him. And despite how much he loves to insist that Change My Mind isn't a debate, Steven prides himself on his ability to have open discussions on divisive issues that challenge our beliefs, with college students who aren't Sam Seder. Being blindsided by Sam in this instance still doesn't explain why Steven has gone to such lengths to avoiding conversation with him in the past. Is it because Sam is just an unfair, malicious debater who, as Steven claims, everyone tries to avoid? Well, I just don't think that really fits. So maybe it's just the simpler answer, that Steven Crowder is just not good in debates, and knows it's harder to use disingenuous
Well, he knows he's not good at debates either.
with rhetorical tactics to manipulate.
That's the weird part, because he has to know he's bad at debating to dodge like Sam Seder. That's the problem. So, which means leads me to believe that he kind of has to realize that he's lying, right?
The conversation when it's someone capable of calling him out. Steven has demonstrated that he is incapable of defending his ideas on a genuine debate stage, and I think it's something he's always been insecure about. Much like Ben Shapiro, he'd prefer to take potshots at college students that he can easily package into a triggered SJW compilation.
That's true, but I have actually seen Ben Shapiro talk to intelligent people. Like, I've seen him talk to Lex Friedman and, who's the black scientist? Neil deGrasse Tyson. So in Ben's defense, Anna Kasparian, he'll actually talk to people. So
They get millions of views on his channel. That's what reaches a bigger audience and makes his arguments look the best, after all. But at least Ben actually has real debates sometimes. Speaking of which, why don't we check in on how these two besties are doing now?
Well, folks, I'm sure many of you have seen the controversy
good transition.
broken out between, I would say, our former friend Steven Crowder. I'm personally insulted by Steven's behavior here. It really is one of the ugliest things I've ever seen.
Oh, well, that's sad to hear. Steven and Ben used to have such a close bond. Yeah, they were so
do you
cute.
think they ever had a close bond, or was it more like a bullied relationship where like Steven Crowder is, because he has like bully energy, and then he was like interacting with Ben Shapiro, and Shapiro's like, I don't want to get bullied by this guy. You know what I mean? I'm gonna pretend to be his friend. You know what I mean? It's one of those like weird relationships. Something to think about.
Good together.
Lawyer present? Do I have Asian
Oh, I'm just copping a peek.
Got him!
Whoa! I mean, could you help? Could you? I mean, we were talking about two gay closeted men inside the same room. Of course, they're gonna peek at their genitals, dude. Bro, how are you? Did somebody just said Joe Bartolozzi raid like fucking 30 minutes after the raid?
Two have always had a long history of genuine friendship under their belt. One that predates online fame, with Ben Shapiro being Steven's first lawyer who helped him negotiate his original deal with Fox News. That's how far back they go. They've helped each other out more than a few times professionally, which is why they effectively split the conservative community in half at the beginning of 2023 with their falling out. There's a lot of petty gossip to get into here, but trust me, we're gonna go over all of it. So sit back, relax with a steaming mug of Black Rifle coffee in one hand and your...
Personally, a little bit of a cringe Disney adult. My wife and I drink Disney coffee. I'm not kidding. This is what we do. I'm a loser. We drink a Disney coffee. So, better than going to Starbucks. Cheaper. It's less calories. So, fuck you if you're criticizing me.
Baby Matt Walsh plushie in the other, and let's get into it. On January 17th of this year, Steven Crowder published a 27-minute video ominously titled "It's Time to Stop."
Yeah, where he just cried about getting a bad deal from Daily Wire, even though it was like for $25 million or a ton of money. It was totally fair. And one of the things they said is like, hey, if you get yourself demonetized on YouTube, you're going to make less money. And he's like, what? How outrageous is that? Like, wow, what a hot take.
To his main channel of almost 6 million subscribers. With no conventional intro, no jokes, and no cringy music video, thank Christ, Steven has almost a somber approach in making vague allusions to a conversation that he admits he's actively avoided.
This has been a long time coming. This is a conversation that I've actively avoided, sidestepped, and I've hoped and prayed that it not be necessary behind the scenes for a long while, but that's no longer possible. This has to stop, or I'm going to have to stop. This may just not be for me anymore.
Yeah, that's pretty intense, huh? Steven has spent his entire adult life as a political commentator. What could possibly be so serious that it makes him question his future in the industry?
For the first time, I have to say that I believe many of those in charge in the right-leaning media are actually at odds with what's best for you, the viewer, the customer, and more importantly, the country.
Gosh, here we go.
We here at Mudclub, we thought that we were all in this together, that we were fighting.
He really morally loaded the fuck out of a disagreement with the Daily Wire.
The media, entertainment, industrial complex. But too many of those in charge of the big conservative platforms are verifiably in bed with them. Big tech is in bed with big con. The people I thought.
Yeah, he said that because of the censorship thing, if he lost his monetization on YouTube. That's the weird thing, is that Daily Wire, they use YouTube to plug their Daily Wire. So you'll put clips on there. There's some stuff that's a little too raunchy. It's too bigoted, really. That won't be able to exist on the platform on YouTube. So they have it put over on their thing. The idea is to watch like a Ben Shapiro video, maybe go subscribe to the Daily Wire, right?
We're fighting for you. A lot of it has been a big con.
Now that is obviously a very provocative statement, and I have to think that Steven chose his words very carefully here. He's trying to elicit interest, teasing us into believing there's some big bad enemy out to attack the little guy. He's hyping up whatever it is we're about to hear next as some earth-shattering revelation that could expose conservative media as we know it. What is Big Con and who's a part of it? Well, he doesn't exactly tell us, at least not in this video, but he does go on to detail it. Contract that he had been offered by an unnamed conservative media group, which included terms so restrictive and offensive that Steven went so far as to call it a slave contract.
I will transition Mudclub into a full-scale network with independent content creators who don't want to be locked into slave contracts. There's no need to be enslaved like this.
These terms basically said that if Steven's YouTube channel got demonetized again, he could see his payment listed in the contract slashed as much as 25% by the company making the offer. But again, doesn't say who that is.
If blank is boycotted or dropped by more than 50% of the advertising partners, the company is not able to replace him within 90 days, the fee will be reduced by 25%.
That makes perfect sense. If you're not advertiser palatable and you make less money, we're going to give you less money. Like, what a fucking hot take, am I right?
Steven does say enough to allege that whoever offered him this deal is deliberately trying—
How is seeking out Disney coffee sad? How is that a sad thing to do? I'm not understanding that point. How is it sad? I don't understand. It's such a weird thing. If you think it's cringe, I agree. But I'm cringe unapologetically. But what is sad about seeking out Disney coffee? Okay? Answer that fucking question for me.
to take advantage of him, suggesting they're licking the boot of big tech and bowing down to censorship to the detriment of conservative principles, and that smaller conservative personalities should be mindful of any deal that may be presented to them to avoid getting locked into something they can't get out of.
Just subdue you a little bit. Just soften your edges a little bit. Just play ball a little more so we can keep our content all monetized. I won't do that.
Yeah. Why? Why wouldn't you do that? Like, why? Like, there's nothing wrong with censoring some of the way that you speak to keep yourself monetized. There's a difference between, like, knowing what you, like, can and can't say versus lying, right? If you're straight up lying about the way that you feel for money, that's wrong. But if you're like, yeah, I got to stay advertiser palatable, let me, like, you know, act in certain ways, it's okay. This is fine to do that. And if you want to do shit, make a Patreon or something, you know?
And I'm willing to bet that most of you won't either. Let me know just how many of you won't.
I think it's sad that you spend time and effort to find a Disney coffee instead of taking a random one. What the fuck are you talking about? There's no way that you think that as a human being. My wife and I went to Disney once, and we liked the coffee a lot, so we bought it there, and then after it ran out, we bought it online. Do you think that I'm like going and exploring town every single time I need more coffee? Where do they have the Disney coffee today? What do you think that the process is here? Would you say the same thing about people who buy their coffee on Amazon? We used to drink the 50th anniversary coffee. Now I don't know what my wife buys, just because there's something different.
Enter in your email at stopbig.
Babe, I'm going out for 5 hours. I gotta go find Disney coffee. I gotta go find it. I gotta find it, right? I gotta go get it. I'm looking it up. I found a local garage sale that's selling it. It's used, but it's 50% off. What the fuck?
BigCon.com.
This, as Stephen probably planned, ignited wide speculation of who could have offered this slave contract in the first place, but most seem to assume Ben Shapiro's very own Daily Wire is the culprit. The company that employs Candace Owens, Matt Walsh, Jordan Peterson, I mean, they're one of the biggest sites out there. And as confirmed by their CEO, Jeremy Boring, in his own video the following day, the Daily Wire had in fact approached Stephen with this lucrative contract they believed was not only fair, but grossly misrepresented by Stephen in his video. Now, if there's anything I know about Jeremy Boring, it's that he lives up to his fucking name. So I'm going to try to get through this snooze fest as fast as we can. Something we have to understand before going further, though, is that Stephen Crowder, well, gets banned a lot. It's kind of his thing, really. He acts controversial, gets punished for it, then cries victim. It's pathetic, but you have to understand this works for Stephen's brand. It helps drive more traffic over to his own website. Making people think that you're constantly on the brink of losing your platform will galvanize them to support you in other, more profitable ways. They purchase the content you lock behind a paywall, they buy your merch, subscriptions, whatever it is. Stephen's fans are more likely to buy Mug Club when the threat of suspension is constantly looming over Stephen's brand. But losing his YouTube revenue would also mean less money is being funneled to the Daily Wire if they were to ever partner. And even though the Daily Wire would be willing to cover a lot of the financial burden if they were to lose advertisers as a result of Stephen's controversial segments, as a company looking to make money, they still have to consider their own best interests.
And that's all this was meant to accomplish. You say, well, it's the same in the end anyway, because you're still telling him, if you say something YouTube doesn't like, we're taking away your money. Well, no, if YouTube would be the one taking away the money. We're just saying that we can't bear the entire brunt of that.
After all, as Forbes outlines, the Daily Wire is one of the biggest outlets on Facebook by a wide margin and appears on the top 10 Apple podcast charts. They can't be putting themselves at such risk of losing that position, since existing on Facebook helps them reach so many people. So of course, from a business perspective, it makes sense for the Daily Wire to include that specific clause in the contract. If Stephen is earning them less money, then why should he be paid the full $50 million they've offered him? Which, yeah, is something else Stephen conveniently left out of his original video. I wonder why that is. Could it make him look ungrateful?
I'm a $50 million slave. Oh, only $12.5 million a year?
Grateful? Like a whiny baby looking for charity in the form of tens of millions of dollars?
Stephen's philosophy seems to be, I deserve to be paid millions and millions and millions of dollars, whether my show drives the revenue or not. That's not a business relationship. He's not looking for a business relationship. He's looking for a benefactor.
Because just to summarize here, Stephen Crowder...
Yeah, poor guy. Poor guy, only $50 million. Holy fuck. Oh, that could barely buy me any Disney brand of coffee. What am I supposed to do with that? I can't even really buy the coffee. Jesus.
Was offered a payout of $50 million over the span of 4 years with a guarantee of a little under 200 episodes per year, which equates to only 4 90-minute broadcasts a week, not to mention a 4-week minimum vacation. That's what Steven calls a slave contract. But Jeremy was quickly backed up by the Daily Wire's biggest personality and Steven's own former best friend, Ben Shapipi, on Twitter.
My coochie big, my booty hole brown.
As well as his own broadcast later that week. It was only after this exchange that...
I mean, listen, I'm not a big fan of Ben's politics, but you gotta love the guy. My booty hole brown? It's incredible. Who doesn't like a nice brown booty hole, you know?
Steven brought out the big guns, publicly releasing a phone call between him and Jeremy Boring that Steven had recorded without the CEO's knowledge. I guess this was supposed to prove how unreasonable and slimy Jeremy was being, but he kind of proved the opposite just by being this much of a snake, I think.
Let's say it's a kid who comes in with 500,000 YouTube subscribers or something like that, 100,000. Let's say some other kid you're paying 6 figures to come in and do it. There's not the penalty of the demonetization or if they're removed from iTunes, Apple, YouTube.
Yeah, sure there would be. If making money off of those platforms is part of how you're justifying the salary you're paying someone, then or the fee I keep saying salary, the fee you're paying someone, then when those go away, everybody loses money. You can't pay the same amount with less revenue.
How about you create a different business model?
Even when you listen...
They did. They quite literally did. The business model is make content on Daily Wire and then put some of it on YouTube to draw people to Daily Wire. That is the best business model you could probably operate with.
The call itself, Jeremy sounds anything but uncharitable to Steven, politely explaining his company's position while Steven moans about wanting to be more offensive than what the Daily Caller will allow. If he really wants to be a provocative idiot, then he needs to accept the consequences that could follow as a result. They're still willing to work with him even in the event that he gets banned. It would just equate to a marginally smaller profit, 25% less. This isn't about big tech, it's about business. And the reality that when you play stupid games, sometimes you win stupid prizes. You just can't expect a company like the Daily Wire to abandon all of its interests just to accommodate your annoying edginess. Calm down and grow the fuck up. But it only got pettier from there, with Ben doubling down his support for Jeremy, tweeting, "It's nasty to attack my company and Daily Wire Plus host as a big con by lying about the meeting of a non-binding term sheet. It's despicable to plan weeks in advance to attack my best friend and your friend by setting up and secretly taping a phone call all to grow your email list."
That wasn't too bad. That was the best Matt Pat interpretation of Ben Shapiro I've ever heard.
Sorry, that's the best Shapiro voice I can do, and I'm not done, so get used to it. Prior to October 5th, Steven's agent requests we send an offer. October 5th, we submit a non-binding term sheet. November 2nd, Steven tells Jeremy he wants $30 million per year, and us to send him a new offer, refusing to redline the term sheet. November 14th, we told Steven we couldn't do that. December 12th, Steven apparently registers stopbigcon.com, knowing he's leaving the Blaze, and that we haven't provided him an offer to his liking. Steven needed a plan. Attacking us was the plan. December 15th, Steven announces he's leaving the Blaze. January 7th, Steven texts Jeremy in friendly fashion to ask if they could talk. January 9th, Steven calls Jeremy and secretly tapes him. This means 96 days elapsed between when he received the term sheet and when he secretly taped Jeremy. And it means that 36 days elapsed between when he decided to attack Daily Wire and Jeremy by purchasing Stop Big Con, and when he called Jeremy to tape him. Gross. Once more, if you actually care about the supposedly horrific non-binding first offer term sheet
Sounds like a Canadian from South Park. What the fuck?
offering $50 million for 4 years, Jeremy reads it line by line here. It is quite simple. If your show loses money, you lose money. This is how capitalism works. You know who knows this? Steven Crowder. That's why he has a piss off YouTube segment in which he deliberately does not say the things that will get him kicked off of YouTube and directs people behind his paywall. He must be a shill for YouTube or something. Okay, that's it. I'm done. Sorry. I had to, okay? For the first time, I think, ever, Ben was publicly duking it out with the man he had started a career alongside. And he wasn't alone either. The Daily Wire's own Candace Owens referred to Steven making a total bitch move. And Jordan Peterson originally sided with Steven, tweeting out Steven's initial video before deleting it as soon as he realized it was about the company that employed him. Good save there, man. The reality is that Steven benefits from big tech just as much as the Daily Wire does. Without mainstream platforms like YouTube and Facebook, these guys wouldn't be able to have such an empire of their own. These sites may have basic rules on what they'll allow, but Steven cannot deny they make it possible to run and operate a brand outside of the conventional networks that are usually far more predatory than what the Daily Wire was offering. As journalist Danny DiPlacido put it, Crowder, Shapiro, Owens, and Peterson all use the platforms of big tech to boost their brand and become wealthy, powerful influencers, all while bitterly complaining that
seems like the deals that Daily Wire give are actually like decent deals. Like they're actually financially decent deals. So I don't think I've ever seen anyone complain about it. So I don't know, except for Crowder, but he complains about everything.
Odds were stacked against them, while the millions of dollars floating around in the conservative media sphere tell a radically different story. The nerve of Steven Crowder to complain about such a generous contract from the comfort of his cushy job as a mouthpiece for the Republican Party is ironic, especially considering what else we would learn about Steven's business practices over the following months. But this all only
like to put his balls in your jaws, is what I heard.
Came to light after a series of allegations that shined a light on Steven's more impulsive personal side, putting him at further odds with an audience that was already beginning to turn on him.
Steven has a lot going on.
That's the best way to say it. He has a lot going on, and that should be clear because people don't do stuff like this if there's not a lot going on in their life. I would like to implore my audience and everybody that is paying attention to the situation not to condemn him, but to pray for him.
After a cryptic message from Candace Owens hinting at some kind of personal difficulties in Stephen's life that would explain his recent falling out with the Daily Wire, Stephen took to his own channel to publicize his divorce from his wife, Hillary. But if you've watched this video already, you know it's kind of fucking strange. Let's go through it.
Since 2021, I've been living through what has increasingly been a horrendous divorce. Now, let me say on the outset, to be clear, there is no infidelity, any kind of physical abuse at all on either side. And no, this was not.
I like that. I didn't even like. Now I'm hearing it again after we've seen like how horrible he is as his wife. At least in that instance, and he's like, no physical. It just felt like intentional. It's not physical abuse. Technically, like, thank you for clarifying physical.
My choice. My then wife decided that she didn't want to be married anymore, and in the state of Texas, that is completely permitted. And
I wish I could have forced her to stay with me, because that's not oppressive at all. That's just beautiful. It's just beautiful.
I still believe that children need a mom and a dad, and that divorce is horrible.
Sure. I mean, you can still be a dad even if you're divorced. I don't know if you know this, Mr. Crowder. Oh, I'm gonna fucking die. My balls. Oh, come. Sorry. But yeah, you can still be a dad. I don't know if you look at it. So just keep that in mind.
But in today's legal system, my beliefs don't matter. In Texas, divorce is permitted when one party wants it.
Oh no!
Period.
So one of the first things you'll notice is Stephen's repeated mentioning of no-fault divorce laws in Texas, which allow either party to leave a marriage without cause, which as many have noted is kind of a really weird thing to bring up given the context here. Like, how are we supposed to read that exactly? Do you want your wife to stay with you against her will? Should she not be allowed to leave?
He wants his wife to stay with her against her Stephen. You get it? You get it. You get it. You get it.
Implicit message a lot of people picked up on in this video. But I learned it also tracks with statements he's made in the past.
And if you devalue marriage to nothing more than a hopeless endeavor, well, then you open the floodgates. It doesn't matter. You can have no-fault divorce laws. It's a big argument you hear all the time.
And it follows a bizarre pattern of men today becoming increasingly critical of no-fault divorce, even in abusive situations.
A year into the relationship, it gets really, really abusive.
From
who? From both.
This is so rare.
Anyone
so
really.
Rare.
Go on.
Go on.
My point is, even though it might be rare from what you guys think, if it would happen, what would you recommend for those people to do? Would they divorce?
You have to endure it. You must endure it. That's all you can do. Do not leave. Endure it. I loved it when Pearl said, most of the abuse is mutual, so who cares? Even if that is true, and most of the time it's reactive abuse. This bad for a kid. So you shouldn't have a kid in an abusive, toxic environment with your parents. Fucking crazy. You're better off getting divorced than trying to be amicable and raise your kid together, than be miserable and abusive with each other. And like, because then you're just teaching your kid those patterns. Patterns of abuse, patterns of like what love is, like incorrectly demonstrating what love is. Because if you have a miserable divorce and marriage to your partner, and you guys hate each other, your kids will pick up on that, and they'll think that that's what you need to do to be in a relationship. I just hate my fucking bitch wife. Just hanging out with my fucking bitch wife today. Just fucking bitch. You know what I mean? Like, that's not gonna be good for them to learn. They're gonna treat whatever spouse they have like that, because they're not gonna understand. Wow, thank God you just walked into that. Jesus.
Divorce, or do you want them to keep going in the relationship?
Keep going. You can't divorce. I mean, that's not a real thing.
Even though it might be like physically abusive.
You gotta endure. People are too.
You want to stick in the relationship.
People are too weak. I beat up women in Japan all the time. I just beat them up. That's me. I get really red in the face when people disagree with me. I hate when women disagree with me. By the way, that's not me, of course. That's that guy. He gets really angry when women disagree with him because he's got a mental fucking issue. So isn't that incredible?
Look,
people nowadays are just everybody quits.
Everybody's a pussy nowadays. Are you married? No, I'm not. I wonder why. At least you're displaying the red flag. You know what I mean? But yeah, it's weird when people that aren't married and don't know how to be in like a functioning long-term relationship give the most fucking relationship advice. I think that women should do this. Are you married? No, I'm not married. How the fuck you can't? How do you give relationship advice as an unmarried person? I don't fucking get it. I really don't get it. Fuck you, cuck.
Everybody gives up. It's too hard.
Everybody
I'm this XYZ. This is why I'm special, so I can fuck up this entire situation based upon me being special.
It's just a very strange thing for Stephen to harp on this much. Just like how he feels the need to clarify.
You're not special. I am, though. My mommy told me so when I was being raised. Okay.
That his kids had nothing to do with the separation?
And all this, one thing I want to be really clear about is certain. True north here is that my children are blameless. completely without fault.
It's like, thank God you
Who the fuck was gonna blame your children, asshole?
cleared that one up. For a minute there, I was convinced your 2-year-old twins were the culprits. Glad you put those rumors.
I mean, listen, if they were watching Caillou, they might have been the problem. I hear that gives kids behavioral problems.
Stephen ultimately wants everyone to know that this divorce is not something he
Mommy?
wanted, despite it being alleged
What
after the
is
fact
it,
that Hillary
Caillou?
only filed for divorce in December 2021 after she learned Stephen had been talking to divorce lawyers himself a month prior, so that's all a bit questionable. But you know, I'm not exactly one to take Stephen Crowder's word at face value at this point. In fact, he's so incapable of taking a sliver of accountability, the only thing he blames himself for is picking wrong.
She wanted something else for her life. That's not my choice. She simply wanted out, and the law says that that's how it works. Now, of course, look, I get it. There are multiple sides to every story.
Don't say
but
next
one
week, idiot.
thing that is undeniable in this case is that it's no one's fault but my own, in that I picked wrong, and that's certainly not the fault of my children.
Yeah, I don't think that's the issue here, but well, whatever, man. Stephen spends the rest of the video accusing Candace of extortion, which she didn't exactly take kindly, to say the least.
Stephen Crowder on election night was our friend. He was on the backstage with all of us, laughing, having a great time. He even sent me a retrospectively very flirty message thereafter on Instagram about how nice I looked on election night, even though I didn't respond to it.
He's
it's very
dogging.
erratic to go from being friends with somebody, being with them on election night, laughing, having a great time, to suddenly wanting to
Damn, he's down with the swirl, baby. Okay, that was a little too far.
from their entire company. This is what I was thinking. This is a broken man who is on some sort of a spiral. It is likely his divorce that led to this moment. He's acting erratic, he's acting panicked, and this at least gives us...
I mean, I don't blame him. She ain't bad. Well, she is bad, you know what I'm saying? I'm hip, I'm cool.
It gives us some sort of an excuse for why he behaved this way. I then went onto my platform and I...
Candace, fucking me. I've only had sex with one woman ever. I'm super loyal. I won't hit you that hard.
I said, pray for Stephen Crowder, honestly, because that's what he needs. He needs a prayer. And apparently, nobody's answering those prayers right now because he's still acting erratic. He's now upping the ante and suggesting that I extorted him. I will not take that lightly.
Another detail that Stephen miraculously forgot to include in this video is that Hillary made a specific and
that's Hillary Duff? She looks so different.
private request via attorney that he not discuss their divorce publicly at all, according to Yashar Ali, whose Substack article we will be discussing in depth. This
Well, that's just a request, but he probably should have adhered to it because this is why this happened.
article, of course, was published alongside the now infamous Ring camera footage, in
Is
which
that
Stephen
the
can be seen
actual
verbally
Ring?
accosting his wife in summer 2021 while she was still pregnant with their
You
twin.
know what the most fucked up part? I know it sounds weird. The dog was so sad. And it's like, damn, like that, you know, like if the dog's sad, I feel like something's really fucked up, you know what I mean? Like, it was already fucked up, I feel bad for her, but the dog is even sad, you know what I mean? The only time I've ever seen a dog sad is when he lost his wife. Guys, rest in peace, by the way. God bless.
Embodying some kind of cartoonish villain as he chomps away at a cigar and barks orders at the soon-to-be mother of his children, demanding she fulfill her wifely duties, and arguing why she isn't allowed to take their one car to the store, as if this is some kind of change my mind segment.
If you refuse to do wifely things, then I will go pick up the groceries.
There's no groceries.
Wifely things.
Wood pellets, my grill. Hillary, how do you respect me? No, you're not taking the car.
Stephen,
You're not
this
taking
is
the car.
Stephen.
You are not
Then I
taking
will
the car.
ask them to pick me up. Would you like me to ask?
Oh, that's right.
It's not about Stephen.
Get an Uber.
Okay, Stephen, I can't.
You want to walk out right now? Listen to me. I can't go to the gym. I can't go to my parents. I can't call my friends. I can't be home. You're going to take the car and leave me here. Hillary, just think of how boxed in you've made me.
What do you need me to pick up? I'll get it. I'll be back when I'm back.
Just get a second car. I don't understand. Like, you're fucking rich. What the fuck?
No, that doesn't work either. You'll be back when you're back. That doesn't work either.
Now, this is another point of contention many have rightfully been quick to question. Why the fuck does Stephen Crowder, a man worth tens of millions of dollars at least, have only one car to split between him and his wife? All we can do as outsiders is speculate. But it has been said how abusers tend to keep just one car at the house as a way to stifle their partner's mobility and...
I've never heard this before, but it's possible. We might be getting a little too deep, but maybe that is what it is. Maybe he intentionally only has one vehicle. I don't know. I feel like when I have kids, I want to have like two cars, like kind of like our driving car. Probably choose like something that my wife wants, whatever. I don't care. I want a Dodge Challenger, but I don't care. And then like a minivan. You know what I mean? This way we can get the kids around.
Independence, forcing them to stay reliant on their abusive spouse, which makes it harder to escape an abusive situation, both mentally and logistically. Regardless,
it's possible. That is very Among Us. Very sus.
Stephen insists his
Very
wife,
sus.
who is 8 months pregnant with twins at this point, might I emphasize, should take an Uber for the errands he insists she complete, which include fetching steaks and grill pellets for her husband. She's literally doing this for him, and he still is sitting here treating her like a misbehaving child, expressing her concern that the dog food she'd be dealing with could potentially be harmful for pregnant women. Not that Stephen would care about any of that. He's smoking a
What do you mean? Was she gonna pick up dog food too? Was that part of it? The dog food's heavy, bro. You can't let your pregnant wife do fucking lift up dog food. You know what the hell's the matter with you?
Fucking cigar in front of a pregnant woman, for God's sake. So much for caring about the safety of the unborn, huh, Steven? Those are his own children he's hurting, if that's any indication of what an amazing father he'll turn out to be. I mean, it's frankly hard not to get mad here. In the video, Steven becomes more agitated as he asks if Hillary's feeling some constraint and says if she takes the car to, again, get his groceries, then he won't be able to go to the gym, see his parents, or his friends. Just tragic.
Mommy, can you pick me up from my wife's house? Mommy! Mommy!
Stuff. But you know what would solve that? Using a fraction of your wealth to buy a second car, maybe. I don't know. Steven goes on to demand Hillary show him respect and that discipline is the only way she's getting out of this, whatever the hell that means. She's an adult woman, not a dog.
The only way out of this is discipline.
Hey, I'm a dog. I'm a dog.
It's the only way out of it, or we're at an impasse.
We are at an impasse.
Good. Because you can't have any discipline or respect. Yeah. There you go. You throw your hand. You give up so easily.
I don't give up, Steven.
You give up so easily. I just said the only way out of this is discipline or respect. You said, then we're at an impasse.
Steven, no, we are at an.
I wonder if Steven was trying to like force an argument with his wife just to argue with her. You know, he's like angry. He's like angry at the world. So he's like, I'm gonna fight with my fucking bitch wife. You know what I mean? Like, she's not a bitch. I'm not saying that she is. I mean, she might be. I don't know. But the point that I'm trying to make here is that like I wonder if that was like all crafted for that. You know? I wonder.
Hillary assures Steven that she loves him and is committed to their marriage, but Steven not only replies with "I don't love you," he insists that if she were truly committed, she'd put on gloves to deal with the toxic dog medication.
And I need some space.
Oh, dog medication.
For a little bit, okay? I love you. I love you very much.
I don't love you. That's the big problem. I've never received love from you, and the fact is, when I go, look, I need you to do A, B, C, and D, just be disciplined about it, you go, no, but I love you more than life itself. Okay. Put on some gloves. No, but I love you more than life itself. That's not fair. That's not fair, and it's disingenuous.
That's true, guys. When I think of the reasons why my wife and I love each other, it's because she will put on gloves and feed the dog. Bro, like, what a weird thing. That's not even a sacrifice. It's like a small... okay. Jesus Christ.
Become someone that's you day in and day out, worthy of a wife. No, not as a wife. I didn't say as a wife. Hillary, come on now.
I'm not going to engage. I'm not going to engage anymore.
And as Hillary calls his abuse sick, Steven snaps back with a stern "watch it."
I love you, but Steven, your abuse is sick.
Watch it.
Sick.
Watch it, Buster.
And watch it.
Watch it, Buster. I'll roundhouse your ass.
I'm gonna let go. I'll get what you need.
The two eventually head inside, where Steven and Hillary have both confirmed that Steven shouted the words "I will f*** you up" before Hillary took the car and retreated to her parents' house, afraid for what Steven could have done.
That's what I say before I fuck my wife up her vagina. And then she's like, I couldn't even feel it, and I just cry. So
he stayed in the home.
I'll get text me what you need. I'll get you what you need. I love you. I'm committed to you.
That's weird that he says that, or she says that. Why did she feel the need to say "I love you" and "I'm committed to you"? The only people who say that "I love you" and "I'm committed to you" are people who are not in love and not committed to somebody. You know what I mean? I don't know. I feel like their marriage is probably has a foundation of being on like a lie, probably because he's gay, closeted, and he's very angry about it. And they got probably married young without having sex. It's probably that's just a tough relationship to be in with somebody that you may not be compatible with. So I wonder if part of it's like that they've been going through marriage counseling and stuff. Maybe that's what it was. And the counselor's like, okay, be positively affirming in this way, that way. I wonder. You're not nice, buddy.
Are you committed enough to do those things?
I'm not.
Are you committed enough to do those things? You're not committed to anything. You're not committed to anything. You just said I love you. I'm committed to it. Walk the dogs. Put on some gloves. Walk the dogs. Are you committed enough to do those things? Are you committed enough to do those things? Are you committed enough to do those things?
Are you committed?
I'm committed.
Walk the dogs. Put on some gloves. Are you committed enough to get the medication as well?
When approached for comment, Hillary's family issued the following statement to Yashar. Hillary is currently living alone in Dallas, apart from her family and support system in Michigan, and is focused on taking care of her young children. She is not prepared at this time to speak about her divorce becoming public or the misleading statements made by Steven about their relationship. The truth is that Hillary spent years hiding Steven's mentally and emotionally abusive behavior from her friends and family while she attempted to save their marriage. She was the one who was asking to work on the relationship to keep the marriage intact for their unborn children. In June of 2021, 2021, Stephen left their home to pursue elective surgery. Hillary urged him to get the help he needed to address his abuse with the hope that their marriage could be saved and that they could peacefully live together as a family. Instead, Stephen refused to do so and chose not to be with his wife during the birth of their twin children. After the birth, Stephen bought a townhouse and left their home permanently. Hillary was unaware that Stephen had hired a divorce attorney and asked his assistant to cut Hillary off financially. There is significant documentation substantiating these facts. We hope that Stephen will cease speaking publicly about these personal matters in an untruthful manner. We also look forward to there being full transparency in the legal process so there is fairness and accountability for the actions that caused the divorce, and to ensure the outcome is what is in the best interest of the young children. Stephen's response to this leak is pretty much what you'd expect, that his words were taken out of context, and that the footage we saw was deceptively edited, something that Stephen has had plenty of experience doing, but yeah, I digress.
Look, broken marriages are ugly, and in them people do ugly things. Myself, of course included, I would never claim otherwise. However...
I mean, that's true, and like being in a bad relationship can bring out the worst in you. And like it can make you a much like worse version of yourself. It can make you angry, it can make you more toxic, it can make you more destructive, but that doesn't give like an excuse. You should be apologetic about it. You know what I mean? At the very least, which seems to not be the case here. I mean, Stephen just seems to be an incredibly angry piece of shit that feels like every feeling he has is validated. He is literally the snowflake baby liberal that he complains about, you know?
Due to recent misleadingly edited leaks to the tabloid press without context and not subject to consequences of the court.
I'm just wondering what context could justify threatening to f*** up your pregnant wife. I'm curious if Stephen has a defense for that.
So today, I have filed a motion to officially unseal all files as they relate to the matter of legal record, finances, relevant medical records, including mental health history or evaluations, depositions, and any motions or sanctions from the courts of Texas. I will not be leaking private marital information to the press, but if the privacy agreements are not respected by all parties, I will address all that is a matter of irrefutable legal record in full context next week.
But some of the supporters he still has left have made the argument that, well, all marriages are hard. One example of an argument isn't enough evidence of abuse, though Yashar, who publicized...
I mean, that is generally true. Sure. Fuck, I'm gonna die.
Video in the first place goes on to cite a series of text and audio messages from Stephen that he personally reviewed before publishing his story, of which Stephen reportedly admitted numerous times to having a volcanic temper and that he has been working to control it through therapy. Though at one point in the audio messages, as Yashar testifies, Stephen Crowder gets upset because he is frustrated that he is not getting enough credit for not having lost his temper for months, but adds that he can't promise he won't lose it again.
I'm sorry, it's fucked up, but that's such a baby thing. It's like I have an anger problem, and I'm upset that you're not giving me a pat on the clap. Where are my clappies? I didn't beat you up today. Why aren't you proud of me? You know what I mean? It's like Jesus Christ. Okay, I mean, I guess I get the fundamentals, like you're being proud of the growth. Like, oh, you made a lot of growth as a person, Stephen. I appreciate that. I guess I get that, but it's just the way that it's stated seems so bizarre.
In the future. Another point to note here is that Stephen and his wife exchanged a series of messages the day before the birth of their twins, in which Hillary pleaded with her then husband one last time, stating, "Stephen, I'm afraid of you and your rage.
Bro, I swear to God that for a second there, I thought we were talking about FNAF lore. This motherfucker sounds like Mad Pat, and that feels like something that would be inside of like a fucking, like a Five Nights at Freddy lore video. You know what I mean? Like this line here.
Pleaded with her then husband.
I don't know. It's weird.
One last time. Stating, "Stephen, I'm afraid of you and your rage. You are scary. You scare me. I want to heal things, but you have to take responsibility. Stop blaming others. Stop feeling pain and sadness only for yourself." But it's not.
And then the purple guy comes in and kills him. Or wait, that's the bad guy. And then Freddy Fazbear punches the fuck out of Stephen Krungus.
Like this is the only instance we have of Stephen losing his temper and flying off the handle.
I know, but I'm trying to do promotion right now. Steven, let's go live. Let's make this the best show ever.
Is it already live?
No, but I'm...
You have no idea what I could have been doing, and that camera's turned on?
Well, yeah, but...
What, are you gonna be jerking off in front of... You guys ever seen Brian before? The Callan, the one guy before? He's on like Joe Rogan. He's like, I'll beat the fuck out of you. And Joe and the other guy are there. They're like, dude, you won't beat up anybody. Like, you hang out with people that let you do shit like that. Get away with this shit.
But you get in trouble, Brian. But you move like you move like a jungle cat.
If his own show doesn't indicate he's prone to random emotional outbursts, maybe you'll take the word of his former employee.
It's a good way to start up a show, like a guest host, like that.
Shortly after the Ring camera footage was published, the New York Post, of all places, reached out to a handful of current and ex-employees, 10 of which outlined an alleged pattern of abuse, not particularly out of line with the leaked footage we just saw. While most of these names are anonymous thanks to NDAs, one former employee stated they weren't shocked, but that it was pathetic what he did to Hillary, telling the Post, "This might not be the Steven you see on his show, but that was the real Steven." These individuals claim he ran an abusive company, screamed at employees, including his dad, impulsively gave the order to fire random
I would yell at my dad too, though, because he's an asshole. So
people over Discord, made his underlings complete personal tasks like wash his laundry. And yes, Steven
and that part I don't care about.
Also had a fun little habit of exposing his genitals to his pals. And I don't even
typical, that's pretty cool, bro. That's typical frat house behavior. By the way, that is also gay. It's gay as a man to take your balls out and put it on another man's forehead or expose your balls in front of men. That's just kind of gay. I feel like there's, again, a lot of closeted homosexuality in these frat houses as well.
Even have to say allegedly to this one because it's something he's literally done on camera. But hey man, it's a joke. It's all a joke. It's funny. The only funny thing in this scenario is that Steven keeps willfully writing sketches where he has to show his balls to somebody.
It says, quote, Crowder was known to expose his genitals to staffers.
Well, hold on a second. Yes.
Yeah, well,
yes.
Just wait. I mean,
that did happen. I mean, what are you talking about? The Terminator 2 sketch? Because remember the nudies didn't fit?
Oh,
that one,
right,
Sam?
Yeah.
Well, now there
was
are...
it the ET ones through the cornfields where we had to run naked through the cornfields?
We were naked in that one, yeah.
We were naked in that one, too.
That was a good one.
That was the night, though.
Was it Gay Captain America?
But you know you didn't have to make the skit, right? No one's forcing you to drop trowel around your fellow straight guy friends. I mean, something's going on here. Especially when most of these claims were not a part of any sketches. A grand total of 6 separate employees told the Post about incidents they witnessed firsthand, with one citing a specific moment in a van coming back from a 2018 event in Illinois where Jared was asleep in the last row. Steven was in front, and he was joking about what he was going to do, the staffer recalled. He climbed over and dropped his junk on top of Jared's shoulder, going on to list another instance where Steven
why? I would just punch him. I mean, I don't know. I guess that's fucking weird.
Exposed him.
Bro, Crowder really just grew up around people who didn't fucking check him. If you ever did, like, I don't understand. Like, the people I grew up with, if you ever did that to them, they'd fucking not, they'd hit you. Like, what are you doing?
Himself to not gay Jared in 2017 during a video shoot. But these employees continued. Another one describing a time they witnessed Steven put his testicles on his longtime friend John Goodman, who shook off the incident.
Jonathan Good, like from Roseanne?
And did not return the Post request for comment either. A fourth employee also alleged they saw Steven expose himself to his former co-host, Dave Landau, at a conference table. It was childish, but then I found out it was something he did. At first, I took it as him trying to be friendly, or one of the guys. Now I see it was a power play.
I don't know if maybe it was a power play. I don't know. It's possible.
Witness stated. Adding, if your manager at Red Lobster did this, it would be national news.
Yeah, probably.
A lot of these employees contend Steven surpassed
if they told people, I guess.
The title of just a tough boss with the way he ran things, being called an unreasonable micromanager who was not only capable of working every angle of your emotions, but would send out unrealistic assignments after hours and set people up for failure. One former employee adding, it was like a cult where you were all in, and that he did not want you having a life outside of it, often blaming employees for projects failing to live up to his expectations. One employee telling the Post, we'd tell him things wouldn't work when a live show in 2018 didn't go as he had planned, adding, I thought surely Steven, who micromanaged the whole thing, is going to take some responsibility here. But accountability from Steven Crowder is a bit much to ask for. Steven instead decided to use the opportunity to gift each of his employees a book titled Extreme Ownership: How U.S. Navy SEALs Lead and Win.
So, I mean, it sounds like here's a book on how to be overly oppressive in the world. I get it when it comes to the Army. It's a totally different sphere. You're running a TV show. An internet show, really. You don't need to be a fucking huge douchebag. I'm sure there's going to be times where you need to have people step up and like pull hard weeks. I agree, but you also have to make the reward worth it, and you have to be there helping them out too.
We all thought we were going to get an apology, but we got a book. It was like a sitcom. His repeated tirades against his own booking agent and father reportedly made former employees uncomfortable. He did it regularly, and it was usually about failing to book someone he wanted on the show. Steven would say, I'm supposed to get stars. I mean, how can you demand respect from your employees when you continuously scream at your own father in front of everybody? I mean, you're a joke. You're being insane. One source concluding, we don't want Steven to suffer. We just want the abuse to stop, or at least let future employees know what they're getting themselves into. Which, by the way, I can only hope enough people listen to, especially considering all of the job applications.
Are you interested in working for a Louder Crowder but looking to follow the roles? Social media coordinator, super video producer. Whoa, a super video producer. Video editor. Wow.
Steven is throwing out on Twitter. With all things considered, it's no wonder why so many people are no longer at Louder with Crowder. According to Dave, Steven was so obsessed with getting the last word on his show that he had a light hooked up to a button behind his desk that, when pressed, would indicate to Dave to shut up.
It became a little weird because a light was put in where it was his rant button, and it was basically a Dave don't talk button.
Wait, so there's literally a light bulb?
There was
Hey, maybe Dave just doesn't shut the fuck up in this. I don't know.
lights in a row.
There were
and
three
when I'm serious. And when it was hit, I wasn't supposed to talk. And they
Do you
said,
remember, was it like a regular colored light bulb or was it like red?
it was like a yellow, a
Okay.
pretty bright yellow, like like yield.
So it's like off camera, but in your eyesight.
Yes. And
would he be the one pressing the button or was there a producer pressing the button?
He would press it.
So like Mr. Burns, like he had a button under his desk or the table, and when it's Steven's turn to talk and Dave needs to shut the F up, he presses this button.
Yes.
Despite Dave being his literal
turn to talk and Dave needs
Why is your welcome spelled incorrectly? I'm probably mocking
to
somebody.
shut the F up, he presses this button.
Yes.
Despite Dave being his literal co-host, Steven was obsessed with having the spotlight to himself. In this podcast alone, Dave accused Steven of censorship, jealousy, and intentionally stifling the careers of people he felt threatened by comedically, reinforcing a claim from another anonymous source who insisted Steven's sentiment of wanting smaller conservative voices heard was hollow. If you were funny or
Yeah, he was just using that as a way to try to virtue signal. And say like, I'm better. I wouldn't do terrible deals for these people, even though the deals that these people got weren't terrible deals.
talented, he squashed you. Steven's weird attitude towards Dave Landau became so unnecessarily strained, eventually reaching a breaking point that Dave could only describe as venomous, when he supposedly uttered the words, "I own you," to his once co-host and apparent friend.
And my phone rings. I don't want to go greatly into the conversation between us, but he's like, do you still want to be on Facade with Crowder? And I said, not at the moment. And he starts going off on me.
How come his ears are censored? What the fuck?
Now there's a ton of people in my apartment who can hear it.
Wait, he's literally raising his voice?
He's screaming at me.
Okay, so literally raising his voice, not just being stern. Like to the
Well, raising your voice and screaming are two different things. Being stern and raising your voice, I feel, are the same things.
point where people, it's audible.
It's audible, yeah.
Yes, okay.
Yeah, it started stern, but then it got into telling me that he owns me. And
In those words?
Yes.
Whoa.
Wow.
Yeah. He owns me. It was venomous.
I mean, I don't even feel bad for this. To me, not for nothing. I don't feel bad for a single one of his employees. I'm not trying to be a dickhead, because what Steve in general does is horrible. I mean, I guess allegedly, because, I guess you can't prove this stuff. But I mean, like, you're working for Steven Crowder, the guy who thought it would be funny to reenact, like, the murder of George Floyd, who thinks it's funny to put on an Asian caricature. Like, if you think that humor is funny, like, you're a loser. And if you work for somebody like that, you're a loser. I don't know what to tell you. If you're a fan of that person, like, you deserve to not. I don't know. I just don't feel you don't deserve anything. I don't feel bad for you.
And I don't know what he was going through at that point, and I just was like, dude, it was all this projection coming at me.
Was this the first time he had yelled at you?
In that way, yes, where it had come out where I saw a different person that I had heard rumors about. I understand that there's going to be a touch of narcissism to anybody who's sort of in that field. I get it. But at the same time, it was so over the top that I was trying not to laugh. And then he said, if we were going to tour together in the future, Matt couldn't do his closing bit on stage. Somehow that comes up. So you could tell there was this projection of how he was angry of how well that bit did.
He told you to tell your friend, who you don't own,
Yes.
that if he's going to tour with you, he can't end on the closer that kills, that gets standing ovations?
He said it was too dirty. He then, this very oddly telling thing, he's like, this is why you don't have any friends. And I was like, what are you, like,
Wait, he said that?
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure the phone call was.
Damn, he really read through all this? I bet watched all this shit and then edited. It's fucking crazy.
Recorded so we can.
Why is there a random picture of fucking North Korea's leader there? I don't know. It's weird.
Always hear it, and I'm not saying that to be a jerk.
Weird
I'm just
show.
saying that he legitimately records his phone calls.
Steven isn't very good at maintaining
That is really weird, though.
Professional or even personal relationships, evidently. And whether it has to do with the bullying he received as a kid, his urge to talk over everyone in the room, or his own jealousy of those he perceives as more talented than him, once you get past all the smoke and mirrors and ignore all the culture war BS that surrounds his erroneously played up macho man persona, what else do you have left? A failed comedian turned professional crybaby, helplessly pleading to be liked by anyone who will listen.
But we're talking
And his chest is caved in, pussy.
about bullying. The reason that bullying in high school is so unbearable, or in the workplace, for example, is because it's chronic, it's systemic. If you have a boss or a supervisor who's a bully, you
Hey, systemic bullying exists, but systemic racism does not.
still have to go in the next day. The real problem there is you have to face that bully every single day. There's no way to get away from it. That's a big defining factor for me.
Since the beginning of Steven Crowder's career, his main mission has always stayed the same, to provoke. Only nowadays, he's doing it under the transparent guise of pseudo-intellectualism, as he desperately longs for approval from a purely reactionary crowd. He doesn't possess the talent needed to make it in the entertainment industry the usual way, so instead, he had to find another way in, by misrepresenting collecting data, spreading lies, and bankrolling hatred. I personally believe these efforts are a calculated way to cover up his own insecurities and just be taken seriously for once in his life, even when it means limiting his debates to unprepared 19-year-olds, being a contrarian edgelord for attention, and destroying every professional relationship he's ever had. It's not a compliment when I say
I wonder if there's a pathway for recovery here. Because I feel like he's just such an asshole. You know what I mean?
Stephen is consistent in his beliefs, meaning he seems to live by all the horrendous shit he preaches on his garbage radio show. And where has it gotten him? Hated by all his peers and estranged from his former partner. From the information we have, it looks like Stephen ruined his own marriage on account of treating his wife like property when he thinks he can get away with it. Hillary appears to have endured his
Got a nice little
marriage on account of treating his
nice little pool back there.
Wife like property when he
I gotta get a house like this.
Thinks he can get away with it. Hillary appears to have endured his abuse for years and is still facing the wrath of Stephen's words publicly, like when he threatened to release her mental health records if she didn't back off. This is a person
what the fuck?
Words publicly, like when he threatened to
release wife's medical. That's fucking horrible.
Release her mental health records if she didn't back off.
I wonder why she would have mental health problems.
This is a person he's been devoted to for the past decade. If he doesn't respect her
with a potentially abusive guy, I wonder why she would have mental health issues, huh?
enough to not attack her on a massive platform, why should he be given any level of respect by anyone? Steven Crowder is someone who should never be taken seriously. He should be mocked into oblivion for his disingenuous arguments, his weak
I bet he inhales his cigars.
attempts at humor, and shameless abuse of those his Christian morals teach him to love and cherish unconditionally. Stephen is a liar, an abuser, and a fraud. And when all is said and done, he's just not very fucking funny, is he?
What the fuck is happening?
Give me that milk. Won't you cut?
What the fuck? What was that? All right, interesting. That last part did make me want laugh though. All right, cool.